you doing? I am Prof is backstage. I'm not sure if he's ready. By the way, he's trying to stream to his channel. We're trying to do a dual stream here, so I don't know if he got that set up. Give me a thumbs up, Prof, if you're ready. Okay. All right. So this is really cool. Um, Hello, Prof. How you doing? Oh, wait. Sorry, I got you muted. Because I there we go. Okay, say something, Prof.
Okay, hello.
Hello. Let me make sure our mics are equal because I can get back. Sometimes I get loud. I'm excited because Prof and I don't do a whole lot of streams together, but it's usually he covers Delphi, and as y'all know, I stepped away for a while. Let me say hello to some very special people. Four Pets, how are you? Who can miss this? I know, right? I would watch it. Hello, Bonnie. Daniel Berry. Whoop whoop. Hello, how are you doing? Carol. Good to see you. Let me go on down here. Hi, Watha. I'm so excited, Prof, because it says Prof is low. I don't know if I can. Let me
Oh, I can.
see.
Let's try it. Hello.
Is that better?
Hello. Is that better?
Okay. So, Prof and I were talking a little bit this afternoon, and I mean, we're very, very similar on our thoughts and theories, don't you think, Prof?
Yeah, I think pretty much. Pretty much we're same page.
Yeah. And so, here's the thing. I made my decision about Delphi. I spent thousands of hours researching, not just the videos, but thousands of hours. I don't even know how many hours researching Delphi. And about 4 or 5 months ago, I made up my mind as to what I think happened. And I didn't change my mind. And so I'm like, I've said it. And if I haven't said it directly, if you can read between the lines, you know exactly what I was saying. So, there you go. And so that's why I haven't had a whole lot to say till trial. But can you believe it's starting tomorrow, Prof?
Uh,
Finally.
no, I thought we'd be February or so. Honestly,
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised they're still on schedule. Hello, Kindness Cake, Yaya Kelly.
what the hell am
Um,
I listening to? Okay, sorry.
I don't know.
I'm trying to make. I'm not able to stream to my channel, so I forgive ask for forgiveness for everyone, but
Oh,
I'll have to post it after we're done. That'll be fun.
or you can literally just play it.
Yeah, yeah.
You can play it on a live stream after we get done. And I don't know. Yeah, we should have done a screen share or something earlier. So
Test
I've
drive.
I've never had a problem, but I always had mine set up like long before. So I don't know. Anyway, so I was going through some of your videos, and I do keep up with you on your community page, even though I'm not in a lot of lives. I keep up with some stuff, and let me just ask you, Prof, what do you think? Is there anything that has surprised you about this case that you didn't see coming?
Oh, wow.
I know, right?
Well, I guess I don't. That's a complicated question because several things. Like, I'm very surprised by the combativeness and a lot of the back and forth with the prosecutor and the judge. I feel that they've been very strong armed and that like they're viciously fighting the defense, and even over things that don't make sense whatsoever, like some geofencing and some of the experts and things that you just wouldn't expect. That's really surprising to me because I would think like why does every single motion have to be like a fight to the death?
Exactly.
Um, and then on the side of the defense, kind of what surprises me is that more hasn't come, um, because it seems like the bare minimum has been brought forward as far as the some of the Frank's memorandum Odinist stuff. Just seems like the tip of an iceberg, which I know is in must be in discovery. And I'm
Hmm.
wondering why. Why is the defense only bringing that in the past 2 years? They've only chosen to bring that when I know there's a lot more. Specifically, I know that there is more, and I'm assuming there's even more along those lines. And it's just I'm not understanding, I guess, both sides. Like, why is the prosecution being so strong armed and battling over things that don't seem to matter? And why is the defense not being more aggressive in bringing out things involving the criminal underworld of Carroll County?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we both agree that it goes back to corruption. So much corruption. And I think that's one of the things I had taken. You had given me some videos of yours to watch, which I only got through mostly one because I was just, I was listening to what you were saying. I did shamelessly screenshot a few things that I want to hear you talk about because it's like I told you when I made up my mind. Um, Nothing was gonna change it, so I haven't really been diving into it because I'm taking my channel probably in a different direction than true crime. But, of course, I will still do special projects. But, I mean, there's several cases that are still really on my mind. But I think one of the things okay, tell me, because you started that first video talking about Todd Click, and, we all know that the charges, his arrest, all that, it was a bunch of hogwash as far as now I don't know whether the allegations are true, but the timing, come on. The timing. What do you think?
I think a lot of people look at that timing, and I don't know if you caught the part of my or any of my shows. I'm not sure which one it was. We've been doing a lot, but one of the most recent shows, I highlighted the fact that April 11th was when all of those charges started, or the ball when the complaint from Department of Child and Family Services went over to the Inspector General's office was
Mhm.
April 11th, and I thought that was real odd, given the fact that on March 18th he had basically blew up the entire case for the
Right.
prosecution, and I had a few friends sitting in the courthouse who when that day was over, they were telling me, Prof, like Doug Carter and Jerry Holman were absolutely furious, blowing a fuse uh, after Todd Click, or while and after Todd Click was testifying. And so I think the timing is April 11th is less than a month after.
Right.
So I immediately developed this suspicion that what they did is they were so furious, they sent out a hit team. I think they got a few guys to go boots on the ground and go knock on every door of every client he ever serviced to try to piece together some sort of dirt on him. And I think that's what happened.
Yeah. And I mean and whether that's true or not, or was that somebody who was leaned on to say that? I mean, I'm just saying. And normally I wouldn't even say that's the case. But this is Carroll County, and this is, that section of Indiana that is so corrupt. Um, it's like, come on, what are the odds?
I mean,
You
I
know,
think like everything these people have done has backfired on on them, honestly, because there's so many of us out here. I've been reflecting lately how there's so many of us out here intensely fighting the good fight. And it's like
yeah,
every single thing they do just backfires on them. And I think this one will too. You know?
yeah. Well, here's the thing: if they're not gonna let, if the prosecutor or the state isn't gonna let all this other stuff come up, in defense of Richard Allen, then I mean, are they going to allow something in Todd Quick's past? I mean, probably, but that's not right. But they only brought this case up so they could bring it up in court to discredit him.
Seems so.
Um, but look, it's just my opinion. When you have three detectives who are working a case and they absolutely have other people pegged for it, and then when Ferenczi was killed, it kind of just fell apart as far as they're continuing. But clearly, they even said, "Hey, look," uh, to the prosecution, "that's not, we have nothing on Richard Allen. This was, they pointed to Westfall, Holder, and Fields." And, there's a lot of compelling evidence. And so, it's like, okay, why didn't you go that direction? Because you didn't want to. There's no other answer for that. You've got three very good detectives saying, you know?
Yeah, and they when I start to put myself in the mindset of a juror, I look at all that and then I think, wow. And then you're going to have to explain away how you lost 70 days of investigative product like interviews. You don't have
Yeah.
any record of who was interviewed. So it's sort of like you took a huge chunk of the pie and you just cut it out and threw it away. And there's no record of what it was, what it contained, who it involved. It's just you made something conveniently disappear. Who knows what it all was? And
Yeah.
um, I think the jury's going to look at that and say, I think we're living in a time I think where people are already hesitant to believe and trust law enforcement as much as they used to,
Oh, yeah.
and when I look at the Karen Reed trial, it's like the defense attorneys there did such a good job because the law enforcement gave them a lot of things to hammer on. And I
Yeah.
think this case is no different. It's even more like they've given the defense so much to hammer on that the jurors are going to be exposed to a lot of that, and it's going to strike on their prejudices that already exist, about
Right.
against police or whatever.
Right. And if there wasn't such a large history of corruption in Carroll County and the surrounding counties, I'd say, I don't know if I believe all this, but
Mhm.
it just keeps piling on and piling on. I had started doing a chart months ago, and I may show that later. Just depends on where I'm sorry, y'all. You probably hear my cat in the background. I don't know what's with her. She's having a mood. So please, please excuse the Sachi in the background. Just glad she's not in front of my face. She's just something else today. Um, but yeah, so okay, I was looking at your notes. Let's see. Oh yeah, and I had brought this up 2 months ago, but one of the things that gets me was wasn't it Westfall's phone that strangely when he turned it into the police after you
Mhm.
know the murders, then all of a sudden there's only 4 days
Oh
of
yeah.
stuff on that phone. And you're like, what? Come
When they
on.
asked for it, he basically either wiped it or he went buy a brand new phone. And
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
mean, can it be any more obvious?
right. And and I will say this. I don't think that the Carroll County law enforcement, all of them, maybe the people in charge, I don't think they're the brightest bulbs in the pack, okay? But I think they're smart enough to cover something.
Mhm.
Um, I don't think they're good at it necessarily,
Mhm.
but they're all in league together. Of course, they have to cover each other's backs. So there's that. And the fact, if I were an investigator and I have a prime suspect here who has been named by multiple people as being involved, then you give me a phone that only has 4 days worth of data on it. Oh, I'm gonna be looking for every phone you ever had, all the years, at least a year back, if not longer, you know? And
Hmm.
it's like, oh, well, he only had this, and that's fine. There's nothing on there. I mean, come on. Like, how stupid do you think people are? And I have to wonder, Prof, because they keep saying that they're not going to allow the Odinist and stuff in, and all the other things that really would definitely place a reasonable doubt. But if this comes up as a juror, I don't know about you, but for me as a juror, if they brought up somebody who was a suspect that only had 4 days worth of data, that would be reasonable doubt to me.
Hmm. Yeah, that's why, and it's like that's why it's so odd how like I was mentioning, how this prosecutor has fought so hard to keep all that shit out, and the judge just has gone with every step of the way. And it's like, okay,
Exactly.
well, fine. But to me, it shows a malignancy there. It's like any normal detectives with good intentions seem like if a guy brought him a phone that was wiped and with 4 days on it, they would say, okay, well, we're going to stomp on this guy real hard right now and
Mhm.
squeeze him. But it seems like these guys, they're just like, oh, yeah, sure. Well, that works just fine. We check.
Yeah. And to me, what that says is that we already know what happened and we're not going to pursue that avenue,
Which
you
makes
know.
you wonder, what are they hiding? Who are they protecting?
Exactly. I mean, that's the only conclusion I can come to because it makes no sense. I mean, like you might have some Barney Fifes over there, but they're not that stupid. I
They're
mean,
not
come on.
all stupid. No, no. A lot
No.
of them are smart, but I don't know. I mean, I think Robert Ives was smart. You ever listen to him? And it's
Oh
just like, what
yeah.
happened to you, bud? Like all of the people who have
Mhm.
stepped down after touching this case that were high up, it makes you wonder, like, what were they running from or washing their hands of? You know?
Exactly. I mean, that's where when I started, I had heard about the case just because I follow true crime. So, but all I knew is the girls were abducted and unalived, and they had a picture of a guy on the bridge. And it was just kind of a brief report. And then I really didn't hear anything, and I never, dove deep into the community or anything. But when I did start was when Richard Allen was arrested. And that was the very first thing that I did investigating this case is I listened to every interview that Robert Ives gave
Mhm,
at the very beginning because my question was, why did you step down? That was
mhm,
so weird to me because this case, and I don't think anybody expected it to go international, but as
mhm,
a prosecutor, you have the opportunity to make a name for yourself, right? So why
mhm,
would you step down unless something really upset you
mhm.
or you were scared, which is what I think. Um, I've
And
heard
he's
people
got this
say,
real
go ahead.
I'm sorry about that.
No, no, go
He's
ahead.
got this real strange statement he made, which was that he said the girls were found so immediately after they were killed. And that
Exactly.
statement right there haunts me because if you believe that the timeline and the narrative that law enforcement is running with at this point, it does not assume that the girls were found immediately. It assumes
Mm-hmm.
that the girls were found, geez, what is it? I don't know, from 3:30 p.m. to
Yeah.
12:15 p.m. Like that's nearing what, 20 hours?
Yeah.
So if you were to
Exactly.
say 20 hours or so as a round figure, I would think let's say my brother being murdered and someone and the prosecutor or the law enforcement or anyone would say your brother was found so immediately after he was murdered, I would think, geez, what, 5 minutes, 20 minutes? I
Mm-hmm.
would think 20 hours. So
Right.
what's that all about?
Exactly. Like I did a video on that. It's got to be close to 2 years ago now. Um, and that's what I said. he says immediately after. And then I got all these comments of people saying, well, in the world of law enforcement, that is pretty fast, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm like, whatever, whatever. Um, I got a lot of hate comments, saying I was wrong. Of course I did. Because you can't tell the truth about Delphi without getting resistance.
Hmm.
But yeah, to me, he would not have said those words immediately. He would have said soon after,
Hmm.
something to that. And he says almost immediately. Yeah, that was a very big red flag for me.
Yeah, and then what compounds that to me is there are all these theories and allegations from locals that the girls were murdered the day before and found the day before, and then they were staged or moved and by these people that were searchers or involved in the search, and then it was all set up to be discovered the next day, and that
Hmm.
all starts to line up. Then it's like, well, hold on, were they found on the 13th, and was it immediately after they were, and then were they moved, and did they take those 20 hours to then move them or something? It starts to get into conspiracy world,
Right.
almost immediate. You look into this case more than like one day, and you start to get right into conspiracy world, I think.
Right. Well, that's how I took a really quick trip down the rabbit hole in the beginning
Mhm.
because, like, not knowing the case, I assumed that Richard Allen was guilty. And then I'm like, okay, let me do another video on this. And then it was like, holy crap, this doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense. Okay, let me hold the phone. Let me start really digging. And then, yeah, I've had a problem with the timeline since very soon after I started investigating this. It's like it doesn't make sense, not at all.
Mm-mm.
Um, and so then it begs you the question, okay, then if it was immediately or somewhat immediately after, where were the girls? And
Hmm.
look, I've said it a million times. Those girls were not there when they searched that afternoon and evening. They were not there.
So
Period.
they found elsewhere where they were actually murdered or something.
Mhm.
And then is all this true? Then were they then found immediately, and then they had to cordon off the whole section or whatever, the whole area, get everyone set up, guard the place, and then use that once they had that perimeter, then move the girls to where they were staged and boom, 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 and say, okay, it's go, call in the press, and you compound that with like all over the years, the controversy and the lies over who found the girls and when and how and da 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 da, and it's it's just so much. I'd like to tell a story you just made me think of.
Yeah,
Um,
go ahead.
the day, okay, I had followed Delphi murders for so many years on YouTube, and so my habit is that I like to watch my smart TV when I'm in bed,
Mhm.
and I don't really watch. I don't like movies too much anymore. I like YouTube because I can go into fascinating channels and watch.
Same.
So so on this October, whatever it was that this was announced, like 31st or 30th, I remember that I turned the TV on, and because I had been watching Delphi videos for 5 years, Delphi videos come up in the feed, and so as I'm flipping through YouTube on the TV, laying there, I think I may had just woken up, and I'm flipping through, and it says Delphi murder suspect caught, bridge guy caught, or something like that. And Silky, I'm telling you, I almost jumped out of the bed without having to sit up. I think I went from laying to standing. I just leapt out of the bed and I was like, what? And I was so elated, and my mind was blown. And immediately I started like scouring the YouTube and messaging people, and my mind was blown. And it was out of sheer joy, surprise, astonishment. I was elated. And just the funniest thing is, as the days went by, all my hopes and dreams started crashing, bottoming out, and
Mhm.
And I just got to the point, once I read the PCA and I heard other law enforcement officers that I knew get their input on the PCA, and once we started dissecting it all, it just all fell apart. And it's I'm not the one. I've said that many times before. I want the Delphi murders solved. I want the killers of Abby and Libby brought to justice
Yes.
more than anything. I want this to go away and everyone have peace and closure and to move on. But I got to tell you, this with this particular way this was done with this guy and the way the behavior of all the court and the prosecutor, and like I'm saying, even the defense seems to be not handling it the way I wish they would. It's been nothing but a disappointment, and so I just have been carrying forward to say I'm going to keep pushing on what I think is important, whatever happens in the courtroom. I'm not going to stop.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was me too. It didn't take but just maybe an hour of looking at, stuff on Richard Allen. I'm like, I don't see. I don't see what everybody else is saying. And then, down the rabbit hole I went. Um Miss Jackie says, weirdly, the first press conference, I thought the sheriff or police that conducted the interview sounded like the voice down the stairs. He also had the same stature. I thought that same thing, Miss Jackie.
Well, that's interesting, Miss Jackie, because I was going to say that earlier too when you were mentioning those guys, and I was going to say how think about the people stepping down, but also the shuffling of positions, and like you got Tobe Lesenby, who was considered an a POI early on.
Mhm.
He's sheriff. Then you got Shane Evans, was considered a POI by some early on. They pushed him into the prosecutor's office. Now he's going to be judge. I mean, you got shuffling around that now, what they've done with propping up Holman, and he's seemed to exhibit bad faith. Uh, I don't know. It's just like a chess game. It seems. You know.
Very definitely, and not even having to do with Richard Allen. I know you and I, Prof. I'm going to say this delicately, but you and I know of another situation in which there was some very important evidence that Holman was supposed to pick up that he did not ever.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about. Not against Richard Allen, not having directly to do with Abby and Libby, but possibly.
Well,
And I had no faith in Holman, but after that whole situation, because we both know this third party very well, and when they kept telling me he's not responding, he's not picking it up, I'm like, who wouldn't want this evidence? Um, but if you're afraid it's real evidence, I guess you wouldn't. I'm gonna put this up here. I'm gonna let you take this first. Can you please explain to the chat how there's no reason for why they don't have time of death because they 100% could get a good approximate time of death?
well, it could be complicated if those girls were kept in a refrigerator or in a put in the creek at freezing temperatures to alter their time of death, and then you had a rookie medical examiner who didn't know his ass from a hole in a wall doing the job, and
For
then you had
sure.
even the dates of death. The latest excuse I heard for that is because Carrie wanted to put a certain day as a day of death, and Anna wanted to put a certain day as a date of death. It's like, no, that's not the way it works. The parents
Hmm.
don't tell the uh, the coroner when to list the date of death or whatever on the death certificate. I mean, come on, it's there's just so much gaslighting and misinfo on this case. It's I was explaining to my friend Adrian, one of the guests I've had on recently, how the most difficult thing about this case for newcomers is that there's been so much disinformation interjected into it over the
Hmm.
years intentionally that it's like information overload. There's so much to look at. Everything contradicts. Every single point has a counterpoint that's been inserted, the waters are so muddied that anyone coming into it, it takes a year to start to even get your bearings.
It really does. And I mean, even just in the last 7, 8 months, you've had this whole it a lie becomes the truth. And that is so weird in this case. But it's even like the clothes that Libby was wearing, for what, 5 or 6 years, she had a certain outfit on. And now all of a sudden she had something else on. But like people just went with it. They're like,
People,
oh, okay.
even Gray Hughes, like, yeah,
Mm
Gray
hmm.
Hughes was a stickler for nailing down the early narrative
Mm hmm.
and not budging. But on this point, he just, oh, just fine. It's whimsical. It's insane. It's for you. So you're telling me the last thing that anyone saw those girls in, uh, for years, it was maintained. Okay, it
Mm
was
hmm.
a BOL description of their clothing, and then we see the crime scene photos. As soon as the crime scene photos leak to us out here, she's in that girl is in different clothes than the other girl was wearing, and all of a sudden, even Gray Hughes just says, "Oh yeah, well, okay, whatever. Yeah, I guess they got it wrong."
But what's strange is the clothes didn't change until the photos were
Hmm.
leaked. Because
Exactly.
once people saw the photos, they're like, "Oh, wait, wait, wait! This is not what we've been told for all these years. This is not what they were wearing. Like, where did these clothes come
And
from?"
still,
Because it. Go ahead.
it's going to be that way with a lot of shit. For instance, I don't know if you're aware of the Cecil. What's his name? Cecil. What's his name? Chat. Cecil. Oh gosh, I can't remember his name at the moment. But involving the digital forensics of Libby's phone. In other words, the phone that Libby was in possession of at the time of the murders.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so for years, we have been saying that Snapchat photo of Abby on the bridge was photoshopped. At least
Mm-hmm.
that's what I have been saying, and some of my buddies. Uh, and I'm talking about buddies who are forensic experts in Photoshop.
Mm-hmm.
They say it's Photoshop, Prof. So multiple of them, and so for years I've been of the agreement that yes, like I not only do I believe your conclusion, but when I look at it myself, something looks. I think it's Cecil Christopher. Something looks photoshopped, or maybe it's Christopher Cecil. But when he came on, they say, "Were you able to find that photo on the victim's phone?" Nope. Oh, well, where did it come from then? Because here we have another. It's Christopher Cecil. Thank you. Yeah, here we have another extreme anomaly. So you're telling me that for all these years, the family has said and the friends have said this photo came from the Snapchat, and everyone said that that means Libby took it on her phone. Well,
Mm-hmm.
suddenly it doesn't come from Libby's phone. It comes from obviously either another phone or another computer somewhere else. So we've always said it's not authentic. It's
Mm-hmm.
a photoshopped image, and then coincidentally, what do we discover? Yeah, it's not on the phone, and it's not a legit thing. So where's it? Then it opens a door to a question: where did it come from?
Right. Now, I had not heard that. But yeah, that's what I've been screaming since the beginning. You can look at that bridge photo at her feet. That's what struck me when I looked at the feet. The feet are not right. And, of course, I have Apophis and, other people who have done some work on this and done a great job. And it's like, okay, I knew I wasn't hallucinating. I knew that that wasn't normal. And but I didn't know about. You said it's Christopher Cecil or
Christopher Cecil, that's what it is. He's the he was the expert who did the Celebrite examination of the victim's phone, and I don't. There's a lot. I'm telling you now. I'm telling you now. There's a lot that's going to be coming that is going to contradict what has been said for 7 years, and people's minds are going to continue to be blown because those dominoes are just starting to fall. So now, so we're going with what you just mentioned, the clothing on Abby that was allegedly on Libby. Okay, now
Mhm.
that's an X. Now we
Right.
got the Abby on the bridge. That's an X. Now we got the possibility of a second phone. Now that's going to be an X. Now where is it? Where did it
Yeah.
go? What about the geofencing? What about those three phones? Even though they can't be, just because they can't be mentioned in trial, does not mean that that information is not going to hit the public airwaves sooner or later. And when it does, what is it going to say? Um,
Yeah.
like another one you can't convince me of. The photo of the empty bridge that is allegedly taken by Libby is an identical match to the photos taken by Cheyenne uh,
Mhm.
of the empty bridge. And I don't care what anyone will say, it's my eye. When I look at that photo that allegedly Libby took, and I look at the photos that Cheyenne allegedly took, they're one and the same photographer, one and the same device. Now, how does it get onto Libby's Snapchat? I don't know. We know this. We know that multiple people had all their sign-ins, all their logins. So
Yeah. Yeah, and that's weird to me, but I know even a couple of years ago, my daughter was like that. She because somebody took over and just took over her Snapchat account, and I'm like, how did they get in? Well, we have each other's passwords, and I'm like, well, you're dumb. I don't give anybody my password to anything. I mean, because that's just ludicrous. Why would you do that? And especially in school kids. But so yeah, I mean, Kelsey also said that she knew Libby's passwords. So I mean, I'm not saying it was Kelsey, but she could have shared it. I mean, we don't know.
who
Um,
knows who had those passwords? Those logins.
yeah,
I mean, I know this is that everyone right now wants to poo-poo the Anthony Shots or the Kagan Klein because it wasn't mentioned in Kagan's case. But I don't buy it. I look at it like this. We know that the victims were in touch with Anthony underscore Shots. Anthony underscore Shots is tied to Kagan Klein. So
hmm
whether you like it or not, whether it came up in Keegan's charges or not, the fact is Anthony Shots is tied to the Delphi case in one way or the another,
hmm
and Anthony Shots was in touch with the victims in one way or another. So
yeah,
it opens the question like, what's going to come of that? What's in discovery? What's known about that? Like, just because it hasn't been in a filing yet doesn't mean it's not going to surface in the trial.
exactly, exactly. And it blows my mind how they're not allowing the geofencing. Like, I don't understand how this is legal. It has direct bearing on the case. Like, I to me, this is so much injustice. Like, how can you not allow the geofencing to see who all? Because we know there was what, 3 to 5 people somewhere around in there, or was it more, that were in that area that afternoon in the exact location where the bodies were later found. So you tell me how you can exclude that from a murder case. It, it makes no sense.
It makes no sense. Like that's the thing. If it's innocuous, then show it to show that it's innocuous. You just say, "Oh yeah,
Exactly.
there were these couple people, but they've been identified clear. They were just these two. They're two of the witnesses. No big deal. No big deal." But to hide it, immediate suspicions, and not only that, I've seen two of the maps. I don't know what the third phone was doing, but I know what two of them were doing, and what they were doing was highly suspicious. They basically they arrive there before the girls arrive. They're jumping from one side of the creek to the other every 20 minutes or so. And it's all the way until after the girls are allegedly assaulted. So it's like, well, hold on. That's a flurry of activity on both sides of the creek at the exact time you allege this all went down. And you're
Right.
excluding it?
I mean, there are so many things, like I said, even taking the whole Odinism and Westfall and Holder, all that, taking that out of there, there are so many things that would scream reasonable doubt if they were allowed in. I mean, me as a juror, yeah, geofencing, big one. The photograph being not real, yeah, big one. Right now, I'm not listening to another word. I've got reasonable doubt and you're not going to change my mind, you know. But I guess they are uh I guess they're well, I mean, you and I talked about it and I think we feel basically the same way. If he is found not guilty, okay, we're done. We're done. You can like it or not like it, but double jeopardy. If he is found guilty, this trial, immediate appeal. And on appeal, I think he'll be exonerated.
He's got a strong case for appeals. I mean,
Mhm.
just the amount of, in my opinion, the biggest one would be the detention circumstances, and then the amount of lost interviews and evidence and all of that stuff. Both of those, like if you have no log of it, how can you say if it was valuable or not? What was lost? You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, say, if you had a log of it all and you could say, well, absolutely, all we did, we interviewed like the mailman who went to the neighbor's house and, he's cleared and vice versa and blah, blah, blah. You could go through all of that stuff and find reason to say every single person in those 70 days, it was a nothing burger and therefore it doesn't affect this defense. But by not having any accountability for any of that, I would I would imagine that it could potentially have been exonerating, or
Mhm.
exculpatory. Um, and what else did I mention before that? I'm forgetting it, but that's what I get for looking at the chat. But
I know, I do that too.
I mean,
Um,
and we know a bunch of people were there. Like you have the entire Burris family was out there. They were photographed. They've been called into question. You have all the other cousins and shit of the family. They've been called into question. Um, you have unidentified persons who are out there. Now, they may be those included in the geofencing, but there's some names we still haven't heard all these years. But we know of bodies, but not names. So you got unidentified persons were out there. You got the Burris family. You got all the cousins and relatives who were out there, and then you got almost immediately you got all those first wave of people who came out there, and then that late wave of searchers in the evening.
mhm.
So when you start adding all those up, you between the time those girls went missing and the girls are found, you've got so many people out there that are potential perpetrators. It's unbelievable. So what
Exactly.
evidence do you have on this particular individual that says that out of all of those 200 people, he's the one that assaulted the girls?
Right. When they can't put his phone down there, they can put it on the bridge, like he said, but they can't put it down there. If they could have, they certainly would have allowed the geofencing. Um, Ruckus is saying that geofencing can possibly violate a person's Fourth Amendment rights. Um, eh, but does that hold true
No,
though in a murder case because you can subpoena people?
that go out to public. It's no this in a criminal trial. There's no privacy.
So that's what I was thinking too. I mean,
Oh, man, it's very very bad. I think it's very bad. This whole thing is people use the word shit show. Apologize, but it's a shit show. It's
yeah, absolutely. Um, and I hope I know he's got some good attorneys. And look, I've always said I do not know if Richard Allen had anything to do with it in any way, shape, or form. Okay, and if he did, then he needs to be prosecuted. But you better show me some hard evidence because all I've seen is a bunch of tomfoolery.
yeah. If he has involvement, I have no mercy. I mean that's what I've always said, that all I care about is the perpetrators of the crimes against the two victims be held accountable. I don't care who it is. I have no ties to anyone in the area. So.
Right, me either. And I mean, here's the thing, I don't, even if he was involved in some way, I cannot imagine him being the perpetrator of the actual unalivings, which in Indiana you don't have to be prosecuted, but still, I don't see that. And I've said from day one, nobody did this by themselves. It wasn't a lone wolf, so
Mhm.
there are other people that need to go down for this crime.
Yeah, and I hate to. I always make enemies with this statement from the defense-friendly people, but my opinion is that I think he might have been involved and possibly in the way he was initially charged, which was as a kidnapping, which means he may have been one who was involved in this scenario where he was the ones who corralled the girls before someone else took them and ran with it. But where's the evidence of that? I mean, in the PCA, it clearly states that a person is seen and heard telling approaching the girls and saying, "Guys down the hill." Does that
Mhm.
mean that they're seen and heard beyond what we've seen and heard? You know, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
how clear is that footage? Is there better footage than we have seen of the individual approaching the girls and taking them? And if so, does it show that it's Richard Allen? Because yeah, that would be definitive proof that he's involved in the situation.
Right.
And they would
Sure.
make it, therefore it would make sense that he was initially charged that way. But I also have a conspiracy theory that something might have happened. Like for them to change, see, I don't believe this any of the narratives they put out. So with the changing of the charging, I think it was a strategy because initially they were saying we have reason to believe there's other parties or other actors. Remember that from the prosecutor
Yes.
and
Oh yeah.
so there was reason to believe there's others aside Allen, which was the shtick they were going with to try to have everything sealed and hidden.
Mhm.
And part of that was he was charged with kidnapping. Well, when all of that fell apart, they changed the charges to murder, no longer kidnapping, and then they suddenly made him a lone wolf killer, and there's no reason to believe anyone else is involved. So to me, that lines up with like some change of strategy on the part of prosecutor. You know,
Yeah. 100%. Or just like, we're not, to me it said we're not going to look for anybody else, we're going to prosecute Alan, and it's going to die down and be forgotten. Hello, cop facts, it's good to see ya. Where I'm from, if you lost reports on a murder case, you'd be demoted or fired. Yeah, I would think in most places. Oh, but if you're inept and incompetent, apply at Carroll County, because that is certainly the job for you. Oh my gosh. Hello, Linda Kay. Um, yeah, I'm thinking that even without the defense is great. They're very smart, and I'm hoping that they can put enough reasonable doubt in there without all of the other things that are so compelling. Um, if they have a jury that is truly unbiased, what do you think the odds are, Prof?
acquittal. I mean, odds. There's no way you're getting a unanimous verdict on this man with what we know. But that's the real question: is what is there in discovery that the prosecutor might use that we don't know? And that's the
Mm-hmm.
only way. I mean, based on what's out here in the public sphere that we know, and even in the rumors behind the scenes, it's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. So I would say jury's not going to buy it. But I've always given that caveat. There could be some bombshell that's being hidden that the public doesn't know about, and us
Mm-hmm.
aficionados, whatever you want to call us,
Yeah,
enthusiasts, we don't know about. Okay,
exactly.
there's something we don't know about that's horrible. Yeah, well, I could see a unanimous verdict, but I want to make a comment about all of this discord and bullshit in the community anyway, and which is that all of this attention, because I don't like bashing cops too much. I mean, I generally hate
Mm-hmm.
cops. They're a pain in the ass to deal with. But I would never want to live in a world without cops.
Exactly.
So I have a love hate relationship. I acknowledge their necessity, but I think that the all of this criticism, all of the eyes, the critiques, the the breaking down of every single thing that comes out and the vicious argument, it's all good, I think, because it keeps accountability high and transparency high. So this is one of those cases, like, I think in best case scenario for the victims, uh, whoever is responsible for making the case so intriguing, and I believe it's whoever decided to create this bridge guy video, which is so appealing and intriguing and it's magnetic and it has drawn the attention of the world to this case. It's really a good thing, because think of how many cases happen and how many
Hmm.
murders happen in this world where no one gives a shit but the parent of the one victim, or the wife of the husband, or whatever. There might be one or two people who actually care about the murder, but in this case you have a million people spread around the world who intensely care about this
Yeah.
case. So I think all those eyes are highly positive, no matter how cruel all the arguing is. At the end of the day, I think the outcome will be better for these girls because of all of this attention. And so that's why I don't
Yeah.
mind the middle of it.
I guess I didn't think about it that way. I mean, I'm just the kind of person of like, I don't care. Um, I don't care what you say about me. I really don't. But it's just kind of the community. I mean, Prof, there are so few people, especially creators, that are not starting drama and coming and trolling the chat and just causing. I'm like, you know what? I want to live a peaceful life. And I have a lot more to say on a whole lot of other topics. And but mostly that's not the reason I haven't followed Delphi. It's just because I've said it over and over and over. It's like, beating a dead horse. This is my opinion, and there has been no evidence to show otherwise. Show me the money, show me the evidence, and then, hey, if I'm wrong, I don't have a problem in this world getting up here and saying, well, I didn't know this. So, obviously he's guilty. I don't think that's going to be the case. Um, just because there's been so much cover up and so much ridiculousness. You don't do that unless you are trying to cover the real thing. Um, and that's my opinion. And yeah, somebody, Teresa saying, look up Jesse Snyder. Oh yeah,
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 we know about that. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I feel like, I don't know if I made it clear or not, but yeah, for me, that's why I say it's important to distinguish. Like, when we look at what's publicly available right now, my conclusion based on what's publicly available is, I see nothing whatsoever compelling. The only one thing that I might find compelling is his body language in the various social media posts from 2017 to current day. Some of his body language, he looks like a nervous type of person, but that doesn't mean he's a killer of the girls. He could have been that way just because of some mental problem or some other
right,
shit in his life going on, or he's broke or something. But I would say that when I look at the legal case, if I look at the PCA, if I look at all the filings in the court system and all blah 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 blah, I when I look at it at this point in time, I have to admit that I've seen nothing whatsoever compelling that he's at all guilty of murder of Abby and Libby.
right. I,
But I leave it open to maybe something will be produced, but I mean, based on what I see, there's nothing, and that's why I don't understand the viciousness of the dynamics here with people. Is that how can people be so convinced? Like, is it the bloodlust that's been referenced, by Diener? Like, is it the bloodlust that has caused people to be so convinced of his guilt that they want someone and he's the one in the hot seat, so he's got to be the one? Because I don't see how anyone could technically look at what we know about and find anything, because for me, a bullet that's unfired that has a scratch on it or a mark, even if it is out of his gun and it's at the crime scene, it still doesn't mean that he was there when the girls were killed. How do you know he didn't trespass Ron Logan's at some point, and drop a bullet? I mean, that means nothing to me.
How do we know the cops when Kathy and Rick were out in the car, how do we know the cops didn't, roll it through that chamber
Yeah, I mean, and
and
for
then
that,
say, "Oh, look what we found," but it wasn't on the original evidence that anybody knows of.
if
So
that's all you
hello.
got, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I'm looking at people and saying, okay, well, hold on. Here's what I know you don't have. You don't have any digital forensics putting his self there moving around the bodies or nothing. But you also don't have any digital forensics placing the family at certain points who were the last to contact the victims, who should be the ones that you're relying on to establish a timeline. So you get the people who last had contact with the victims. That's usually the first people you look at real hard.
100%.
You got nothing from their phones to establish facts for the jury to say, we know that these people were here and there and there and there, and they were the last ones with the victims. So then we jump off from there, you know.
Well, I mean, if you're gonna bring that up, and I've brought this up before, absolutely not accusing anybody. So don't get me wrong here. But if you're gonna go by statistics on the deaths of juveniles and children, smaller children, you look first to the family. There's your first family and or close friends. And I'm not saying that the Patties are guilty. Do not mistake me, but that is definitely your first source. The closest people to the family. Who are their friends? Who are their friends' parents? Who are who's living in the house? What's going on? It's gonna be usually closely related to somebody in the household or a, a close friend that's in that. You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, yes, do bad things happen and sometimes children get abducted? Of course. But the majority of cases, I mean, look at Madeline Soto. Uh, Normally, it's going to be somebody close, or the reason being having to do with somebody close, and that's just that's just investigation. That's what happens. Statistics say it's like 80% or 80 something percent chance that it's related to somebody in the household. Um, let's see. Let me go back up here to what digital was saying. Um, yeah, right. Let's see the photo evidence from when the bullet was compared to Weber and Maxwell gun. Wouldn't that be? Wouldn't that be something? I mean, again, and the whole thing with Richard Allen, Prof. It just, when I started realizing the election was just a few days away.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh. I mean, come on. Can you really? Like, it was obvious. I don't know if you've watched the town hall meeting.
Hmm.
Um,
I
I've
did.
watched. Okay, yeah, and I watched both of them. Uh, when there were three candidates, and then that just had gone down to two, and it was very, very clear to me that Lazenby was not the favorite to win. Clearly, the way the people asked the questions and when they stood up and clapped for the other candidates, um, yeah, not Lazenby, but Liggett. When
Who's the
when
other? Let me
well, there was Pinkard, and then there was oh y'all in chat help me.
help us out.
Yeah, Pinkard was the third one, and then it whittled down to, why am I drawing a blank on his name? But
Pinkard and
he,
Liggett though were the final two, right?
right, Liggett and the, yeah. And in that last town hall meeting, like everybody in there was really, really applauding, because Liggett was saying, "Oh, basically, boys, we got this handled. We don't need outside help." And the other guy's like, "Yeah, let's call the FBI. Let's bring in all these agencies. Let's figure this out." And the townspeople were,
Well,
standing up applauding.
and I'd like to give my theory on that because
Go ahead.
I mean, look, I don't like sounding like this. I really don't. I wish that I did not sound controversial in opinion because this I don't I'm not the type to even care to have it. But when I really thought about that and I went back and I watched it and I let it sink in for 6 months and thought about it some more, it's just so obvious to me. It's like hold on. Okay. The thing is, if they've been hiding what really happened prior to this election, okay, and what the community was facing was a potential changing of the guard
Mhm.
where there's going to be a thorough turning over of all of this, digging back into it, bringing outside agencies, just opening a whole can of worms. With that, all things considered, with that, then you can kind of start to think and understand, well, hold on. If this is something so huge that they have to keep it protected, it would make sense then that the goal wasn't just to win an election like any normal politician or sheriff around. The
Mhm.
goal was we have to keep this group together that has been hiding this all of these years, because if we fuck up and lose this election and
Mhm.
this guy Pinkard gets in and they turn over everything and reinvestigate and open it all up and they start to get to the bottom of this and bring prosecutions, like, we are effed.
Yeah.
And I really do think that's why things then took a turn and they went and arrested Allen. They pulled the trigger. And then you notice that since then, Doug Carter has never really been on board 100% with it. He's always distanced himself. Like
Yes, he has.
he said things to the effect of, like, Julie Melvin recently mentioned that he said to her, uh, when she said, "Oh, this is great," you at the press conference for the at the very press conference for the announcement of the arrest of Richard Allen, she says, "Oh, Doug, great, great, you did great. We got Bridge Guy, huh?" And his answer was, "Well, it's a start in the right direction." What the?
Yeah.
And then when Emily Longnecker asked him the same question, "Oh, it's great, blah 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 blah. So you arrested? Do you think he's the killer of Libby and Abby?" His response was, "The judge signed the probable cause affidavit for the arrest of Richard Allen."
Yeah.
Does that sound very compelling to you?
No, because even if you didn't want to be on record as saying yes, definitely we got the guy, you would have worded it differently. You would have said the evidence, is very strong and compelling that we do have, the correct person,
He
not
would have,
just the judge signed this. Well, yeah. So,
like that's distancing it I take it as a in the lingo of like distancing. And then
yes.
what you would expect was he would be uh solid on it. He would be overjoyed, but as a professional, he would be solid and he'd be like, absolutely is the killer of Libby and Abby, and it will be proven in the court of law and it's for the jury to decide. But we have a
Right.
reason to believe, and you would expect some sort of stance. And and like I said, that you'd think that they did it when he was out of town, almost like it was done without his knowledge. And I really do mean to reinforce that aspect of, it's not like, because when I first had heard people saying that, well, Liggett just wanted to win the election, I discounted it because it sounds like a dumbass thing to say. Like, yeah, yeah, I don't know. Like, are elections really that important? Like, I don't know. That seems like a stretch. But when you think of it in terms of, no, it's not about him personally winning an election. It's about that entire contingent that is behind him and part of his group. It's about all of them remaining in power to keep this thing under wraps, because if he gets out of power and all of his associates who are surrounding him, the whole thing falls apart. Pinkard gets in there, starts turning things over and exposing things, and then brings in outsiders. It's a complete disaster. So in those terms, I think, yeah, well, yeah, it was about the election, but it wasn't just about an election. It was about this entire thing being unraveled, and I that's what I feel now.
Yeah. Well, That was the first thing I thought. Well, after watching the town hall meeting, because eh, from the very get go, law enforcement. And again, I don't want to come down on law enforcement. I love law enforcement, but are there crooked cops and are there small town politics and stuff that they're involved in? Yeah, and Indiana, unfortunately, is just li- it's run rampant. If you just go and look at the arrest records of cops and people in public service, it's like, dear God,
I
what is going on?
even
But
today, I'm sorry,
no,
I
go
don't
ahead.
see it pulled up on my screen now on my YouTube, but it's just like every several days there's someone else being arrested, especially regarding the CSAM, and I mean cops and officials
Right.
and and teachers and preachers, and it's constantly. And look, every place has its problems, but it just seems like, I don't know, is it the algorithm that's only showing me Indiana perverts being busted, or is it truly like that it's a lot happening there?
It is. It really is because when I've just from time to time Googled, in the last week the news, these kind of people being arrested for CSAM, and yeah, Tennessee's really bad too. But Indiana always comes up. Like I started early this year. I just Googled in Indiana how many teachers were involved or arrested for some kind of sexual crime against minors. I mean, the list just kept going. I had pages, just in Carroll County and the surrounding counties, and then even lower into Indiana. And I'm like, you know what? This is a novel right here. I've got page after page of the person, the county, and what their charge was. And this isn't like going back 10 years. This is like 2 years, 3 years, and so it's a real problem. And that was very apparent to me early in the game. I thought, yeah, this election, I mean, I'm from a small town, and look, I'm not saying we don't have a lot of nefarious people. We do, but we don't have this number in my whole, I'd say, 3 or 4 county area. We don't have this number of people arrested. And so, but I do understand how small town politics work. And that was the first thing I thought, Prof, is Liggett had to win by any means
Hmm.
to keep everything quiet. So it just made sense to me that, okay, so if Liggett and they were terrified of the guard changing, then they're hiding something. And that probably means that Richard Allen is innocent.
Yeah, and it would make sense why you then take the mayor and move him into the prosecutor's office, and then
Right.
you take Holman and you give him a promotion to prop him up, and then you take the assistant prosecutor who was the mayor that you brought in, and now you're making him a judge, and it's like building this wall to try to combat this tidal wave that they're facing. But I really do think, like we started the show off saying, Silky, that all of these moves that they've made that are so bold, brazen, I think it's all going to backfire because I don't think they anticipated the public interest in all
Hmm.
of this and the amount of man hours that would go into digging into it. And you can't, the one thing about it is when people get started on you, you can't put the cat back into the bag. You really can't.
Right. And even things like that should have gone, well, things that should have gone viral that didn't were not just Flora, but Karina McClurkin, you
Mhm.
know. Now, a lot of people in Delphi have researched that because of Delphi, but would that have gotten the attention? No. Flora definitely is a hot mess. It should have more attention, but I am very, very grateful that, in spite of, like you said, in spite of all the hate and the very bad community that sometimes is out here with Delphi, Yes, in that you're right. At the end of the day, it has brought this to international attention.
Hmm.
And yeah, we really have to thank the trolls and the whatever creators. I don't even know what word I'd use for them. Um,
I
yeah,
mean,
because they've done it. They've helped.
yeah, and I would say wait 2 weeks. Like wait until this trial gets underway and it starts to get CNN, MSNBC, and all the national Fox, all the coverage that it's about to get. You're going to have a flood of people come in, and the eyes on the case are going to probably double or tenfold, or who knows who can predict how many more eyes. But and then those people are going to start asking the same question. So when I was saying the past month, I've been saying we're entering the pressure cooker. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like the shit's getting deep now, and people are going to be turning on each other. People are going to get emotional. People are going to there's going to be, I predict that there's going to be bombshells drop coming from the public sector that we don't even know about yet, because things people have been all that intensity is going to cause things to surface in the public sphere, and then it's also going to be surfacing simultaneously other things in the midst of the trial. So I mean, if you've ever thought it was crazy, hold on, because I think we're about to find out a lot. And like I was saying this, all of these anomalies we've called out over these years, one by one, they're starting to reveal themselves to have some uh, what's the word, traction, or some depth to them. So
Yeah.
think of all the other anomalies we've called out that
Right.
haven't been validated by these filings yet, and they will. And I've mentioned before, like I've been really big on this Kokomo crew, Garrett Kurtz and Tina Rodell story,
Oh
where
yeah.
you have
Mhm.
this entire meth involved situation and crew who are all active out there. We know Jeff Reagan ran that place with the Kokomo crew, and Garrett Kurtz and Derek German were tied together, and so is the entire family. This entire, I mean, the family of both victims tie to Derek German, who was a major supplier of methamphetamine, and both these victims end up tied to the game in that way. And if it's them being victimized because of that, and all of this shit starts to break the surface as this
Mhm.
trial gets underway, I think the entire community is about to, uh, it's just about to flame up, because people want these secrets. I mean, I've been angry with people lately and saying, look, time for secrets is over. We're here. Like all these
Right.
secrets, it's been fine. You've been comfortable all this time, but a lot of people are about to get real uncomfortable.
Um, yeah, and I was looking for I thought I had downloaded it, but I'm just gonna tell you, like I said, I stole some stuff from your community page.
Awesome. Give
Um,
me a minute, please, while you cough.
um, and Tina Rodell was one of the ones I thought it was on this list, but I don't see it, so I guess I didn't upload it. But yeah, everything that Tina Rodell has said, and you brought up the part about the earrings, because Tina Rodell said that when her daughter came home, y'all remember this whole story, and she had been, I don't know if it was initiated, but she was definitely assaulted. And this is, the woman that said that there was the red stuff all over the side of the car. And her daughter also came in with earrings. But then there was a point, and I had this in print, where Anna asked if they were Abby's earrings. And so, I mean, definitely it is in people's heads. And that was all the Kokomo crew. I've always said that, to me, if you're getting away from the trial and Richard Allen and all the people that could have been involved and probably were involved, I've always said, along with many others like Garrett Kurtz and all that, Gabe Ellis is a big one. Um, nobody talks about Gabe Ellis that much, and I'm like, I don't know why not. I mean, do I think Westfall and Holder and Fields had something to do with it? Well, I mean, there's evidence that suggests that for sure, but I also have to look at Gabe Ellis and what he did. And I said this, Lord, a year ago, over a year ago, like, he had some very suspicious moves during that time. I mean, come on. And
I
this, I assume this one, Prof, is was trying to find.
That's definitely Eric Williams.
That's what I was thinking. I know it's blocked out, but I was thinking it had to be Eric Williams, and y'all know how he said he saw, all of this stuff, and but it's the very last that says, let's see, I pointed it out to the police at their search party, but none seemed concerned.
Hmm.
There was quad tracks leading away from the bridge to a farmhouse. Again, officials seem to not care. Then they have audio and DNA but can't catch him. They know who he is and refuse to charge him for the fact that it will, hold on, ruin a family name, okay, in Carroll County.
Hmm.
And, I'm like, okie dokie. Um,
Family name that has status. That's what he says. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
And I will show you that while we're showing stuff, because I worked on this months ago and I thought, um, let me get back down here. I thought, if I know I can find this. It took me a long time. Um, but I'm going to make this bigger so I can't see the chat right now.
could you
Um,
go back to that first one? I just want
yeah,
to
the
point something
map.
else out. No, the Eric Williams you just had up,
Oh yeah. Hold on just a second.
because this right
Um,
here, uh, I just want to point this out because you didn't, and I think it's worth since this is up here. Okay, see how it says this is the fourth or fifth line. This crime was practiced on animals and led to human life. Okay,
yes.
what did Westfall and Holder have the falling out over?
Right.
That he wanted to move on from animals to humans. Remember
Exactly.
Amber
Mhm.
Holder's testimony and also the tale of
Right.
eternity, and you start to put all that together, and Eric Williams, it's smelling like all one thing, especially when you look at, okay, yes, we believe the bodies were staged, right? So that I believe what you're seeing on the bodies and at the crime scene, it's part of staging, not authentic. But when you look at it, we have two occult experts or satanic murders experts who are
Mhm.
both alleging that this is legitimate signs of occultism at the crime scene. So it would indicate that whoever did it had some sort of handle or knowledge on the occult angle or occultism.
Right.
So if it's someone who's practicing animal sacrifice and it leads to human sacrifice, even if that's not the motive for the crime, it could be that when they did the staging, they were able to put authentic looking sacrificial elements because that's something
Exactly.
else, another part of their life. It
Mhm.
doesn't mean that they were killed for that reason, but it might be
Right.
killed for another reason. But whoever staged them just had that knowledge and said, oh, yeah, we'll put those sticks and make it look like that. And it's going to look like Satanists did it.
Right. Because if they got caught, they would blame it on the Odinists.
Right.
If it wasn't covered, if the real motive, and I'm not saying that, could Odinism have played a part? I don't know. It depends on the whole details of how they were unalived. But at the same time, I mean, yes, it could have been just staging. But the question that I was uh, going to go back to, and I'm just going to throw this out here. And Prof, you can, I know we talked earlier, but I don't want to suppose what you want to say and or not. But there's like, I've got a lot of slides on this. I was making connections. This is probably back in April or May. And I was connecting all of the people. So you have Abby over here and you have Libby. And then, of course, we've got like, I was putting details in. But one thing that ties the two together is if you look in here, Brenda, Becky's sister, was friends with, oh, that should be to Anna, not, I'll have to fix that. Should be to Anna, not Abby. But she was a friend to Anna Williams, was she not? That, as far as I know.
Well, and according to a drug source on Derek German, they were both supplied. Both Brenda and Anna had been supplied by Derek. So that's it makes sense that like there should also be a stick that ties Brenda and Anna directly to Derek. You know.
Yeah, let's see. Like I said, I was just working on this. Okay, so I need a stick that ties Brenda to Anna and to Derek. Is that what you just said?
Yes,
Okay.
directly to Derek.
Okay.
I was just laughing earlier because I just noticed your sus cake served hot.
Oh, sorry.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I recently added the Brenda because I was this is what I was working on, is tying this. Now, we know that Abby and Libby were best friends, but and everybody knew everybody, okay? There's that. But that's what I was looking at too, is all the direct sources that come with this. And you have to say, and this has just always been my opinion only, but it's like when we were talking earlier, I have the very same suspicions, and I always have, about the Idaho form uh case, and that the drug element, from what I know, and this is in my area, this is how discipline goes. You understand what I'm saying, y'all? Um, the f- I have always had to. I can't say it's not related. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't there. So this is in my opinion only, but looking at the type of crime and the brutality, the sheer brutality of what happened, to
Mhm.
me does not scream that these girls were taken for CSAM or something like that, because if you're going to unalive somebody, it would be in a different manner, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Um, but the sheer brutality that Abby and Libby went through, to me, has cartel written all over it.
Yeah, yeah. Me, I mean, that's where I'm leaning. And see, I made it a point to speak to a couple former cartel, possibly one current, um, and where was I going with that? And some. Okay, okay. Rewind. Beep, 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 beep.
You go
I
ahead.
spoke to a couple cartel, one former, one current, and I spoke to a couple biker. One, I spoke to an old lady, and I spoke to a couple former bikers, and the consensus that they all that I came away with after speaking with all of them separately is that these people have more discipline than the law enforcement,
Mhm.
possibly military. Like the way that they operate, they're very disciplined and they're not afraid to die.
Right.
So when they are doing things, the level of commitment and discipline is very high. And and if there's some situation where they're going to exercise discipline upon someone like Derek German, it's going to look like this. And it's possibly,
Exactly.
being that you have two victims, it could possibly be against both families.
Mhm.
Maybe it's against the Williams family and the Patty and the German. I can't tell you who the discipline's against, but I would say there's a potential that exists based on that previous graphic that it's again, like you can't just look at Libby and say that's maybe possibly something against Derek. You could possibly look at both victims and say the way it's, I mean, if it's truly a disciplinary action, it would not be allowed to innocently kill Abby. Like that's not that wouldn't be
Right.
allowed in most cases. So
Mhm.
in order for Abby to be part of the discipline, it would have to be someone direct that it's being directed to. But I don't know. I don't know at all. I know when I'm looking at the scene of what was left, it looks far worse with Libby. So you would assume, well, that message is about Libby's side. But I
Yeah,
hate
it
talking
does.
this way. I try to never talk this way because it's just really horrible to discuss. But
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
that's uh, that's my leanings, or But like I said, when these these bikers and these cartel, they're not mincing words. Okay, they are saying like it's discipline.
I and I've said this before months ago um on this channel that it doesn't this is the way I leaned. I have leaned for a very long time because um even even though Odinism is a factor, um I personally know someone and was very close to, still friends with someone who back in the day, and this has been quite a few years ago now, was involved with a cartel in my area. And he only missed being involved in this case out of just sheer luck. He decided to do something else. He was supposed to go with some of the members, or whatever you want to call them, the associates, to discipline someone in the area. And this guy that was being disciplined was in a wheelchair. His daughter, who was pregnant at the time, was there at the house. They broke in brutally. I'm not even going to go into the details, but brutally unalived the guy in the wheelchair and set the house on fire. The daughter broke out a window in the back of the house, and she was like, I don't know, 6, 7 months pregnant. She was pretty big, but she managed to get out and run out, which is the only reason that they knew who did it. And, the only reason that she wasn't unalived. Now, the kicker in this whole, and you're like, that's a terrible case. Yeah. And I was actually at the hospital when this broke on the news. And one of the nurses that I worked with, her husband was a police officer who had responded to that call. So, she told me what little she could. And then later on, I met someone who was supposed to be there, but just didn't get there in time. Let's just put it that, to be part of the discipline team. And the kicker is the guy in the wheelchair. I mean, of course, he was buying, I don't even know what substance, but he only owed them $46. $46. But they felt like they needed to make an example of somebody
Yeah.
because things were getting out of control. And so you have this very brutal, horrific crime for $46. And I don't think that people understand that is the culture that they live in. And while we think of, taking the lives of these two precious girls, yes, it's horrendous. And like, no, people wouldn't do that. Oh, yes, ma'am, they would. They absolutely would.
Yeah, I mean
Um,
they would because like something we talked about earlier is they don't want to sever the ties of the economic pathways, so they're not going to go kill the supplier or the cook or the big time uh, dealer. They're going to go and hit you where it hurts. They're going to get your wife or your kids or your brother or your father. Like they're going to go where they think it's going to get the message across to everyone else and to you to keep yourself in line. But I mean, it's all we're speculating. But when you look at this, I kind of look at it in two ways at this point. I look at it like it's either this, because this is what surrounds the community, this is what surrounds the families that are involved, this is what surrounds the location that it all happened at the time period. Like in every single way I look at it, this is the environment, is this meth infused, scenario. The absolute only caveat I would give it is that The only other thing I could see is that it's a huge sacrificial element. Like, so if you're going to tell me that law enforcement legitimately cleared every single one of these meth dealers and this entire scenario and absolutely know that that wasn't the deal because they went and they spoke to all of these guys, well then what else does it have to be? Is this like a is this like a new world order satanic sacrifice to the prince of darkness or something where they arrange for the specific time and place and with these specific names? And there's an angle that like I can kind of stretch my imagination and say, well, you got all of this 213 shit involved in the crime. You've got Abigail Williams, who's a witchcraft associated name, Liberty German, which can be flipped to German Liberty. Like, there's a whole bunch
Yeah.
of elements that are esoteric, including the town of Delphi being a place where it was the gates to the connection to the underworld. You could kind of like expand your mind and think that there might be people that are so elite that choose every so often to do some sort of human sacrifice on this level to keep their power in the esoteric world or something. I can also see that, but that's even a further stretch of logic and imagination. I mean, when I back all the way off of it and I just look at it, it's like, yeah, it could be something like that. But most likely, what makes the most sense? Well, who are the people accused in the first days? It was all the meth heads, meth dealers, the meth people, the family, the shit that was going down there with all the meth dealing, the meth cooking. Even Carrie, the mother of Libby, said that. Uh, I mean, when you really look at it, and you think that what's the rule? Occam's razor or whatever.
Yeah.
Is that the one? Occam's
Well,
razor. I
I
always get
mean, it's
Occam's
the one
razor and
that
Murphy's law confused.
Occam's razor says basically that um, it's what happened is usually the most obvious likely thing that
If that's
happened.
what it is, yeah. Occam's razor, because you look at it, it's like, hold on, you're at a place that's known for cooking meth all the time. You've got a family that's full of meth involves people and felons and bikers. You've got all the initial POIs. By that I mean all the Kokomo crew, the Garrett Kurtz, and all those people. You've got um, the father being a big time supplier, and you've got something else I'm leaving out, but you're the initial wave of info was all about this Kokomo crew, these this dealing. Oh, the thing I'm leaving out is, and then you've got that huge showing of bikers. Okay, so I'm thinking immediately when I look at it, I'm thinking, okay, this is about Hell's Angels versus outlaws. This is about underworld criminals versus underworld criminals. There's something that goes down. The girls end up victimized. The result is that street justice is now served. There's a showing of 5,000 bikers or whatever it was to show that it's all handled. There's a truce. We can move on with life. The law enforcement's in on it because they're part of that whole structure. To me, that's Occam's razor. And now,
Yeah.
could this be an anomaly of a case that doesn't follow Occam's razor? Yes, well, it could be an outlier, but I don't know. If I knew, I wouldn't be sitting here speculating.
Hold on. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to all my lovely mods, but um, I have problems in the chat, and uh, let's see. Prof, what happened? I'm sorry. I took all my mods off because I'm having problems. Here, give me just a second. Go ahead and say whatever
Yeah. No, but I truly do mean it. Like, if I if I absolutely knew what I wish I knew, uh, there would be no reason to work as hard. All I would do is be on the phone with all the attorneys and all the law enforcement, demanding that they address the issue the right way. So we're all just here trying our hardest. But when I do look at it, when I try to step back to the 30,000 foot view and look at it, it just seems kind of obvious. I mean, we're dealing with like drug runners and and bikers, and I've spoken to a few of the above, and
Prof, are you sure you're not streaming on your end?
yeah, I'm sure what's going on here. Oh,
I'm trying to block and it won't let me. It,
oh, I see.
can you see that message that I
No,
don't know if you can see that that's coming up on my screen. Hmm. Okay, I'm guessing that there's a hack going on somewhere because I can't do that. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to look into that because I have literally gotten rid of all of my mods to see what was going on. I've never had this happen before,
I
so
don't
I'm gonna
know.
have to. I'm sorry to y'all, lovely people. I'll put you back on later. I know. I know the majority of y'all. Well, now there's none listed, so I guess we'll just let it go. Idiocy. But yeah. So I mean, yeah, it does. It makes the most sense. I mean, when you look at the type of crime, I mean, there's just so much. But here's the thing. So now, here's the big question, and this is where it gets sticky. Because if you have, let's say we do have a cartel, we have this kind of crime, we have a payback, whatever. Why are the police covering it up? Why are they making sure the guard doesn't change? Why are they making sure that evidence, you know, against certain people is not taken seriously? You have
Well,
to wonder.
yeah, I would say that if they've got something to lose, like did we have one of the CIs be the murderer? I mean, was a hitman also a CI who was working with law enforcement? Was this entire situation a law enforcement situation, and one of the CIs went rogue? Um,
That is possible.
and now law enforcement, or was law enforcement benefiting from this whole setup where they're on the take? Is the sheriff, or were there people entrenched in this system who were profiting from the trade that was going on? And and is it a combination? Maybe they're on the take, profiting from the trade. They don't want to stop that economy, or that blood flow of that economy. And maybe there's also a CI who goes rogue in the midst of the situation, and so now they're risking all of the above. They're risking losing the money. They're risking being held liable for the murders because it's one of their CIs that should be in prison, but he's not. There starts to be a lot of complexity, you know, to try to understand why.
All
And
right.
it's why I'm not a family blamer. I'm not a family blamer at all. I'm a family questioner, and I made that very clear. Like, what I question is, you're acting strange, funny. You're trying to control a narrative. So why? What is it that, what do you have to gain or lose by doing so? Because we don't think it's justice for the girls.
Yeah. I sorry. I am a bit distracted, but I'm trying to fix it and I can't. I don't know.
I'm sorry you're having problems.
No, no, it's usually I can usually take somebody in timeout, so I don't know how they're getting around that.
I could
Whatever.
see a couple that need to be in timeout, but it's fine. The chat is nothing. The chat is nothing.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, but I took it off the screen because I didn't want it, and then I took myself off the screen. I don't know if you could tell, but I was like, "Huh?" whole stream is going downhill. Um, no, you're right. If it was a CI, that is to me, Prof, the only thing that makes sense is that there was a CI that went rogue, because then they would have to save the embarrassment, and I don't even know what all could be done.
And there's people that's been saying this for years too. By the way, it's not our original idea. Like, people have been saying it's a CI who went rogue, and law enforcement was also getting in on the money of the whole trade. So it's kind of like a double edged sword, like a double whammy. But
Yeah.
I mean, we're at the point now where you kind of messed up because you've drawn so much attention to this case that now you're in a situation where people are not going to stop digging. Someone's going to have to be thrown under the bus other than Richard Allen in this. And that's another thing, because I see someone in here gaslighting. Look, I don't work for the defense. I don't work for the prosecution or the defense. I work for
Right.
just for Libby and Abby. Okay. If Richard Allen is tied at all to these guys, it's due to the drug trade. Okay. Bottom line. And the gangs and the drugs. If
Right.
he is, if he's not, then he's not. But I'm not doing anything I'm doing for the defense, and I'm not doing it for the prosecutor. What I'm doing is for justice for Libby and Abby. Now, it just appears at this moment in time that it's the defense who is going to bring out more justice for Libby and Abby than the prosecutor. And that's a damn shame. But that's
Yeah.
why at this moment, I'm tending to want to help the defense bring truth out to this case so that if others are involved or if others are the perpetrators, that they be held accountable. Because no matter, I don't care what anyone thinks, if you're going to allow Richard Allen to go down and a bunch of others to walk free for this, or at even one other to walk free for it, then you're Satan. Like, you need to get the fuck away from this case, because
Yeah.
what good is it that Richard Allen be sacrificed for any others who are allowed to get away with this? Like, that's not just the truth is what's justice for these girls, and that's what I stand up for. So I don't care who says what. They've said all they got to say. Uh, I have no fucks given about no one in the chat gaslighting. Like, if I'm trying to help the defense ever, it's because they're the only ones receptive to the truth.
Yeah. I mean, and I know at the end of the day they have to it's their job to defend Richard Allen, but yeah, I'm of the same opinion. If he is involved at all, it would have to be on that end. Um I know I've heard rumors, about stuff, little blue people. I don't know what I can say and can't say. But I've heard that. Is it possible? I mean, I don't know. I don't know him. He doesn't seem like the type, but you don't know. You don't know what's going through somebody's head or what the payout could have been. Um, but I definitely do not have never will never believe it was one person, and that's exactly what's going to happen, Prof. If Alan is found guilty, well, no, let's say he's innocent. That's the verdict. Do I think Carroll County is going to look for the perpetrator? No. Never.
They don't want to look.
No. No. If this was their Hail Mary pass, it's like, okay, let's grab this guy Richard Allen because I don't know. For whatever reason, we're going to pin it all on him. At first they're like, "Oh no, there's other, actors," but oh, no, there's not. It's just him. Mm,
It
that's I
the
call
thing
it.
That's what I mean. The inconsistencies are just bewildering.
Yeah.
I mean, and you look at people. Okay, look at John McCurdy and Anna Downham. Okay, they were murked by this group, in my opinion.
I
Stephanie
don't know
Thompson
them.
was murked by this
Oh,
group.
yeah, Stephanie
Okay, Blaine
Thompson.
Nelson, I believe, was murked by this group. I
I'm not
believe a whole bunch of people in this community that touched these bastards ended up murked. And the question for Carroll County and the ISP is, when are you going to allow these terrorists to stop running in your community? Because they are
yeah.
terrorizing. They are serial killers at this point.
Exactly. That's why this was other connections, but you did mention McCurdy.
Oh, McCurdy,
But
yeah, what you got here? Let's see.
yeah, so I've got Diener and his wife Abigail. Okay, now he's the one, of course, that signed the PCA and then recused himself. Abigail Diener, Stephanie Thompson. Um, let's see. Well, Abigail worked with in the same law firm as Judge Fouts, and we know what a crapshoot that was. Okay, then you have Stephanie Thompson also involved with CASA with these two.
Hmm.
And of course, then we know here's Jalen Rain. She was a uh, she went through the CASA program. Okay, so I'm just connecting the dots here. Now you've got Dan, that is Judge Fout's brother, and Beth, his daughter, who is was connected to Judge Moffmer. Along over here, we got, I have to go to the next page. Okay, so we got John McCurdy. Let's continue that. Okay, John McCurdy goes all the way over here
Uh,
to Barbara. His ex wife is Steve Mullins, down here, chief of police. His sister, John McCurdy, dies in a house fire. Hmm, interesting. You got Fouts connected to Stephanie Thompson, um,
who
and
did all
Judge
the
Thompson.
polygraphs? Yeah.
Yeah, did the polygraphs, and then she died in a house fire. Again, directly, it was on a trip with Abigail and Judge Fouts. I can't remember where they went. They went on some kind of do good trip. Um, so, interestingly, you've got all these people connected. Then you've got Moffmer. He's the one that, the car fell on him because he was doing his own work on his car. Uh, he is he is the one that put Travis Lee Evans away for 152 years for sea uh, assault, being a chomo. And okay, he was a former Cass County deputy. Now you got Shane Evans, who is Travis Lee Evans' nephew, the mayor of Delphi. I didn't add judge because I started this before he was judge. And he was working with Nick McClelland, the prosecutor. Again, do you see how all these people connect? It's like, my God.
How many dead bodies in this list? I mean,
Yeah,
God. That's
exactly.
what I mean. It's a serial killing by a fucking cartel that is, for lack of a better term, I call them a white boy cartel, and they're terrorizing the locals. But everyone they're terrorizing has some way to make it bad for them. So it's like the way they deal with it, they kill them. And how
Right.
long is this going to be allowed to continue? Like, is this not a RICO? That's what I've been screaming for 2 years. Is how is this not a RICO?
Exactly. And Jalen, I keep going over to Kokomo Boys Club. Let me keep going. Then we have the connections between Nick McClelland and Flora and Delphi. Okay. He's the prosecutor for the county. He and Brad Holder, both Freemasons. Uh, Holder and Westfall have a lot of connections. Odinism, Vinlanders. Also, you got Colton Creasy up here, Vinlander, Odinist, all tied back to Flora. You see how they all just, like, you can't tell on somebody because you're connected.
It's a
That's the
Motley Crue
problem.
ragtags. Yeah.
Yeah, because you go back, over, um, where was Nick's
You
name?
connect McClellan back to Brad German and his wife Terry, who is a direct relative to McClellan. So then you have the conflict of interest. Is why is McClellan prosecuting this case when he's related by marriage to one of the victims?
Exactly. It's like, it's insanity. I know it's a small town, but you should have recused yourself. You're too close to this whole thing. So, yeah.
And you know what's interesting? I well, go ahead, go ahead.
No, no, no. I was reading the chat. You go ahead.
Well, I found it very interesting. Let me I'm looking here. Sorry, my eyes are not that great. Let's see. Um, so I'm looking for the filings for transport orders. Okay, so look, let me read you four names. I don't know if you've heard about this yet because I know you've been working, but so you had Kagan Klein. So recently, it was on the 10th. So how many days ago that is that? 3 days ago. You had a transport order requested for each of the following: Keegan Klein to be a witness for the defense. Hello,
Say
James.
that again. I'm
You-
sorry, I got caught up in chat.
let me say this very clearly because I think it's escaping many people. Listen to this and how you remember when I said that bombshells are going to keep dropping. Think of this.
Hmm.
The defense has requested transport of the following inmates of the Indiana Department of Corrections. So, to be witnesses for the defense in the trial: Keegan Klein,
Wow.
James Chadwell,
Really?
James Haas, Enrique or Ricci Davis Jr. So, what do we have there? We have a serial pedophile, we have two murderers, one of whom murdered someone on Deer Creek, and we have
Hmm.
a meth dealer.
Yeah.
So you tell me, why is the defense calling these four criminals?
My guess, this is just without looking into anything, my guess is because it has to do with Richard Allen's confession and the situation and the treatment and his state of mind in prison. It
Yes, maybe.
maybe to say, I mean, unless there's more to the story, but I'm thinking just off the top of my head, are they all in were they all in Westville at the same time, or um
No. Uh, like I obviously like. Okay, so a majority of the people are saying what you're saying is that's the reason they assume.
mhm.
But my mind instantly went to, wow. Yeah, sure, they could testify to that. They could also testify to the abuses of law enforcement and the abuses of the prosecutors. They could talk about a lot. But
Yeah.
guess what else they could testify to? Well, let's take one by one. Keegan Klein could testify to all of the Dropbox and all of the people he's ever associated with, and everyone and any communications he had with Libby through or Abby through the Anthony shots, if he did, and blah 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 blah. Criminality, right?
Mhm.
James Chadwell, he could talk about all of his life as a felon and a crime and committing crimes in the entire uh, criminal underworld of central Indiana. Same with Haas and Ricci Davis Jr. They could all testify to uh, immense details or immense amount of detail into the criminal community of Delphi and Carroll County and that whole region. So I leave that possibility open that that's what it is. That's what it is. It's they're not because anyone could be called to testify on how the cops are bad or the prosecutor shoves
Right.
down their throats. They could have called anyone, but you got someone who killed someone on Deer Creek, you got a meth dealer, and then you got Keegan Klein and Chadwell, who both of whom were POIs. So what's really going on? Because I don't obviously like I don't know what the defense's approach here is, but it's looking to me like it can head in that direction easily.
Yeah. Yeah, it certainly could.
Yeah,
Wow.
maybe. And now, see, there's also the gaslight. So let me tell you what the gaslight is. So as you go on, you'll see some of it. You'll pick up on it. The gaslight is there's some of the real gaslighting people out here are saying no, no, no. They're the defense is so desperate that they just want to put people up that are worse than Richard Allen to make him look good.
Uh,
Literally, that's I've seen that statement made.
Yeah, I don't whatever. I didn't realize that they had been called. Interesting though. It's going to be very interesting. See, I'm so torn up that this is not going to be televised because
It's a
then, we're
tragedy that it's not. Yeah.
yeah. And I mean in my opinion, um uh who somebody calls her. Oh, there's so many names for Judge Gull that people put in chat. It's hilarious. But yeah, she doesn't want, in my opinion, that's all it is my opinion. She doesn't want people to see how many times she overrules or doesn't allow things, and how I assume that she is going to be biased towards the prosecution. She would not want people to see that. I think that's one of the big reasons.
I think that's the main reason for not allowing it is she doesn't want the world to see like we saw. Okay, you know how the Karen Reed case was fascinating, and
Yes.
millions of people around the world watched that case. It's my opinion that that's exactly the reason she doesn't want this televised, because she knows how bad it's going to look. She
Yeah.
knows what the appearances are. I think they believe she's very intelligent, fully conscious of what they're all doing and what she's doing, and
Mhm.
they need the dark to operate in. And it doesn't matter if you got 10 civilians sitting there in the public seating. Those people are going to come out with their own prejudices and biases and all this other shit, but the cameras don't lie, and she knows that. So the objective, in my opinion, is to keep transparency out of it and let it be skewed by the perspectives of the 15 people who will be able to get their asses in the courtroom. Because with Karen Reed, you could clearly see what people were doing. You could see how the cops were combative. You could see how the witnesses were combative. You could see the shit show going down, and you could see the effectiveness of the defense attorneys. And I think it's I mean, it's a crime. I really feel it's a crime. Like there's absolutely no reason that a single media pool camera can't be set up on Gull's desk or at any place she wants, pointing in a certain direction that's safe for everyone in the court. We don't need to
Mhm.
see a single person in the
Right.
courtroom other than what's going on the witness stand and at the bench. That's all we need to even see.
Exactly. Exactly. And that should be fairly easy. And I mean, I think of other trials like the Daybell case. There were a lot of things, and Gannon Stout, there they didn't show the crime scene photos or anything that was blacked out. There
Hmm.
was a lot blacked out in those cases, so you certainly can do it. Yeah, she doesn't want the public scrutiny of the rest of the world seeing her ridiculous actions to suppress evidence, in my opinion.
Hmm.
And do I think that she's in cahoots in some way? I, I don't know if I don't know. With the prosecution, I feel that she definitely has reasons to side with them. Um, and in my opinion, you shouldn't be a judge if you have, I know the state is bringing the case, and I get that. It kind of always does lean a little bit, but at the same time, I think there are reasons. Maybe it's cronies that she has, dealings that she's done. I don't know. But there is a reason that she is trying so hard to push the defense out of this case.
It's so unbelievable, Silky. I mean, if you could be like, you know how I said that I believe everything they try to do backfires on them. Well, this is
Hmm.
going to backfire on her because there's going to be 10 times the scrutiny because there's no cameras. But it's just so odd. It's bizarre that she was an advocate for cameras in the courtroom in the first place. And you mean to tell me like she has this golden opportunity to achieve the result of her dreams in the biggest case she will ever address as a human being on this earth. She has the opportunity to show that cameras in the courtroom are a good thing and that it can
Yeah.
establish confidence, transparency, and trust in the judicial system and legal proceedings. An amount of peace and calm it can instill in the result of it all. She has this golden
Right.
opportunity to do so. But instead, she's going to contradict her own beliefs and her own past. And instead of facilitating and allowing and promoting and giving the cameras in the courtroom to give that gift to the world and demonstrate why it's a good thing, she's actually gonna stab herself in the foot and say, no,
Yeah.
everything in darkness, everything that's going to leak out of the courtroom is going to come out via perspectives of emotionally charged, biased individuals. And so it's going to be nothing but confusion and gaslighting on the coverage of the case. And it's going to keep things obscured. And then whatever the result happens of the case, it'll just eventually all die down. And then there won't be the footage to constantly replay on YouTube channels and on the mass media. And so she thinks she's putting the fire out or damping down the fire, but the flames. But no, I think just with everything they do, it's going to backfire. And
Yeah. I mean, if nothing else, when people, and I'm sure a lot of people will ask for a transcript from the court and read it for themselves, but absolutely. When, I mean, how many cases, Prof, have been overturned and even people have gone free because of suppression of evidence?
I
And I
mean,
mean, why would you do it?
you compelled the confessions out of the guy. Like, do you know there's this case where there's this guy I posted on my community page not too long ago. There's this guy who was brought in for questioning, and he was questioned for 17 hours and very tough in a 17-hour confession. They even brought his dog in and said, this is the last time you're going to see your dog because the pound is going to we had to take your dog into custody and we're putting you under arrest and they're going to put your dog to sleep. So say goodbye to your dog. They convinced the guy to confess to murdering his own father.
Oh my
Okay.
God.
Well, you know what the facts of the matter were? His
What?
father was alive and well at the airport catching a flight to go on vacation.
Oh, wow.
The guy confessed to murdering his own father after that interrogation, and that was only 17 hours.
Wow.
Imagine what they did to Richard Allen,
Yeah.
putting him in Westville, threatening him to no telling the extent, forcibly drugging him with injected medications against his will. I mean, if you've ever been arrested, like 24 hours in a jail cell is enough to make you lose your fucking mind.
Yeah.
Imagine how long he was in at the time these confessions started to surface, and
Exactly.
look at his body and his clothing at the time that he was at his worst.
Right. Well, just from working in corrections like I have and having patients who clearly are not mentally well, whether it's they came in that way or whether it's a result of something that happened in the jail. I would say from the things that we know that he was eating his papers and he was basically what we call in corrections is making milkshakes in the toilet.
Oh,
But when you're that bad, okay, and you're in solitary and you have a camera, at least in my jail we had a camera on those type of people to make sure they did not harm themselves. And but you already know the brain has checked out for lunch, long break. And so anything that patient in a medical professional capacity, anything that patient says or does in that state is just, it's ridiculous. It there's a likelihood
that's
that they are just hallucinating.
that's when those confessions came. And remember,
Right.
even Dr. Manakawala, who was the one injecting him with these drugs, she even said he was in the middle of a psychotic episode at the time these came. And if you see, when I read the transcripts of Brian Harshman regarding the confessions, it was laughable. It was literally laughable because uh, you would expect that he would have brought out the most damning confessions, blah 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 blah. But all he brought out was, well, he said things in a way that if you know how he talks, you could interpret as that he had guilt knowledge of the crime or da 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 da. Like, I didn't find anything in there that was compelling. And you also got to understand during this period, he was literally asked, so he was being guarded by other inmates, plus or watched by other inmates and guarded by guards who had these odinous ties at a time when this was a theory of the crime. We know there were people feeding back info to him that could give him knowledge of the crime scene because all
Mhm.
of that had been out in the Franks memo.
Right.
They could have fed that right back to him to allow him to have knowledge of the crime scene. And then the whole time he's asking repetitively, is my wife alive? Is my wife okay? Is my family alive? Is my family okay? Why would someone ask if their wife and their family is alive unless they've possibly been threatened that their wife or their family would be unalived? You know,
Right.
it's an odd thing to say so specifically. So
Right. That was always a thought of mine in the very beginning too, is, if he wasn't, this is before I knew he was, eating his paperwork, and all these things. But I'm like, if you are going to confess to a crime that you didn't commit, it's because you are protecting somebody else. And my assumption is his wife and family. But yeah, there's so many factors to this. Plus, if you just look up jailhouse confessions, and I mean, to everybody who says, I've listened to it for months and months, what, the past year. And I'm like, do research on jailhouse confessions, and you will see that they don't usually stand up in court anyway, because there's so many factors going on, um, in that situation. So it's like, even if I thought he was guilty, I mean, I would say this. If I was on the side of the prosecution 100%, I would still say, yeah, I don't put any faith in the confession. None. Because I've done my research, you know.
yeah, let
But
me read. Let me see if I can read this. So let's see. I'm not
what are
too
you
good at
reading?
reading, but let's let's see. Okay. Eighth Amendment says, in all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with witnesses against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, uh, and and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. Let's see. Oh, it was a seventh I meant. Sorry. Okay. Seventh says, no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime. Well, we would say that this one is capital and infamous, unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service in time of war, public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb. Now the clause. Nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor private property be taken for public use. So you're telling me that putting that guy in Westville and subjecting him to the threats and the conditions that he was subjected to as a pretrial detainee, undergoing a psychotic episode for an extended period of time, forcibly medicated, threatened, possibly manipulated by the inmates who knows what they were saying to him. Um, you're telling me that even had he said something to the effect of, "Yeah, I killed Libby and Abby," if that's what you want me to say. Okay, so that's a confession that you think a jury
Mhm.
is going to believe has standing and means has any sort of validity or means something. I mean, it's outrageous. But it's funny, Silky, because the longer we talk and the more we talk about this, I always feel like we're basically arguing with idiocy. It's like I feel like I'm arguing it's like all of these points you're
Same.
making are so common sense. It's like
Yeah.
because all we've been fed from the other side is just these points that just they're just non-logical. They're like gaslighting idiotic points, and that ends up being the things that we're coming out we're talking about and kind of arguing against. But I don't know. That's why I believe in the jury at this point. I'm thinking, I just don't see how any unbiased jury that's truly there for justice is going to. This is going to make sense to.
Yeah. I mean, exactly, because that's where I started. Literally started my Delphi videos with the assumption that Alan was guilty. You know, it was like, oh, okay, they caught him. It was only with common sense and asking questions about discrepancies and things that didn't make sense. I'm still like, in the beginning, I'm still trying to fit Alan in the time in the whole thing, and I'm like, this isn't working. This isn't working. There's too much. And then when you put on your hat of common sense, it's like, oh, wait a second, no, you know, this
Even the
this doesn't
slightest
work.
bit. Yeah.
Right.
And that's what was compelling to me is I was like, okay, this guy's guilty. I was just like you, I was so excited, and then I start looking for what do they have against him? What is it?
Right. Yeah.
And the more or the less that came out, it's like, well, it sounds like it's nothing burger. It sounds like they really don't have anything on him. I mean,
Right.
truly. Now,
That
might something be produced? Yeah, and if something is, I will gladly acknowledge that. Yeah, well, I guess I was wrong. Maybe there's some bombshell, but
yeah. I mean, now I will say this though. The evidence that is produced that we don't know about, I definitely would want to look into it, because at this point, the everybody, law enforcement, I mean, you just start naming names. They've been so um deceitful up to now that I don't know. I'd have to investigate, like we've been doing.
I
Did
mean,
this
that's
is
they
this really
made
true?
this culture that. But see, that's where I'm so confident, Silky, that like I said, that there's so many hundreds of us right now who are tuned into this, and we're critically analyzing every single speck of it. So I have confidence that yeah, we got a real good team right now, a real good team, and it goes into the over 100 people, and it's not even. I don't even need to talk to some of these people. Like the community is strong right now. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. And the only question I have is the jury. The actual jury have do they have common sense? Are they handpicked? I know you have to agree. I know there's a whole process, but are they really going to be able to? That's the deciding factor to me, is who are these jurors, and are they actually biased, or do they know people? Because you can't know everybody's connection. And uh but if we have an unbiased jury who has a brain and some common sense, I think he'll either be acquitted or there'll be a hung jury. Um, which I hope. That is to me, that is the very worst outcome would be for this, because then they're going to have to do a trial again, because I think that if he is found guilty and then they appeal it, I don't see how Carroll County can afford any more expense. So therefore it's going to have to go to a somebody else, especially if they appeal it and say because these people are corrupt and they withheld evidence. If it goes to a higher court or whatever, an appellate court, then you're going to have these bad actors not in control of anything.
Hey, have you heard about this case? Like I covered it on my channel and I did some community posts, but it's been a while back. Okay, so there's this case there was a case called Feeding Our Future. And I think it was in Minnesota. But So what happened is that they caught a Rico, okay? But the thing that tipped it off is that let me see if I can find her name. So what they did is they attempted to bribe a juror, and the way they did it, um, they knew that that this woman was going to be a juror. They had found out. Let's see.
I don't think I've heard of this case. It's very interesting, though.
Okay, well you got to know about this because this was absolutely mind blowing. And let's see. They basically gave her like 120 grand. Okay, so let me click on this one. So they're going to name her. So it says a juror was dismissed Monday on this Feeding Our Future RICO case after reporting that a woman dropped 120,000 in cash in a bag at her home and offered more money if she would vote to acquit seven people charged with in this RICO case stealing more than $40 million from the Feeding Our Future or whatever it was called. Uh,
I
Seven of
don't
the
think I've.
first 70 defendants were expected to go to trial. And this woman or this person was one of the jurors. Okay. And look, I'll show you here. Let me see. I'm trying to get rid of this ad so I don't show you the ad. But basically, shit, it's not working. But so this juror went outside and found this. Okay. Let me try to cover the ad. See the bag of cash? Oh, there you go. The bags of cash.
Yeah.
So basically, this juror goes out on the front porch, finds a bag of 120 grand, um, with a note in it, but this is for the not guilty verdict, and there's more if you do this. So it just makes you wonder. It just makes you wonder, like, what's a potential with this particular jury, considering all we've seen with this contingent trying to cause an overwhelming, railroading of this guy.
What is the name of the person?
I didn't see the name of the person right away, but it's irrelevant. But if you type in "feeding our future juror bribe,"
All right, let me write
so
that
what they
down.
did instead for themselves by doing this, they they basically made sure that they would spend the rest of their lives in prison because it involved multiple people, uh, one sending the cash, one moving the cash, one going put the cash on the porch. It was a whole thing, and all of their devices were seized, and they were busted wide open. The
Jeez.
juror was 23 years old, but you see, you got to think, Silky. Thank God the juror had integrity, and instead of taking the cash and running with it, the juror decided, no, I'm not doing this. I'm passing up 120 grand plus 40 more or whatever, and I'm going to inform the authorities that they tried to do this.
Um,
So
you
the
know,
juror was dismissed and the trial continued. But now these five that were in on this scheme. Oh, here's a good one. Yeah, this five that were in on this scheme. They that's the cash in the bag.
oh my god.
The five
Oh
that
my
were in
god.
on it, they caught federal charges. So
Well, I tell you, I think, well, the Murdoch case, there's a good chance that there's going to be another trial for him, who, in my opinion, is guilty as homemade sin. But um, because of who was it? One of the staff of the court said something to the jury and should not have said anything. And so now, like all this evidence, to me, they're saying it colored the case, and there is a very real chance that they're gonna uh, say it's null and void. In which, like, look, it's a hot mess. But she has been under. Well, I think I can't even remember. I think she lost her job, whatever. Now we're all worried about that because clearly the evidence that came out in that trial, I mean, Murdoch was about as slimy as a human as there could ever be, and probably convicted of really, several unalivings of his family. But yet, it makes me wonder behind the scenes. I mean, this is Indiana. This is this judicial system. How many people are coloring this? Will it come out in the future? I mean, I hope you're right, Prof. I hope that there are tons of things to, come back and bite them. Uh, I can't get over. I think the one thing in this case that just I'm like, I'm still flabbergasted. It's been a year and I'm still flabbergasted that you can have law enforcement get up and give an affidavit that is not true. And it's like, hello, what? Like, why aren't they behind bars?
I mean, and why wasn't that turned over? Because one of our
Right.
esteemed guests here tonight told me in the very first days, he said, "Prof, fruit of the poisonous tree,
Mm-hmm.
learn it." And specifically, what he was talking about was the PCA. That
Right.
and you look at it, it's like, well, hold on, how has this not been like the results of that search warrant should have been overturned immediately. And then if you go to the arrest, I would assume the arrest warrant too, because they basically copy pasted from the search warrant application to the arrest warrant.
Yeah,
You're,
badly.
you're lying outright. You're misrepresenting witness statements. You're omitting pertinent information. But you got a guy in Westville going for a double murder now? I don't know how it's allowed. I really don't. What if it was your son or daughter or your mother or father? What if it was my son or my mother? How would that feel?
Exactly. Exactly. And that's the that's the thing. People, and that's what I've been screaming for when I was covering Delphi all the time. All the time. Like, you all don't realize you're taking one side or another, but you are not realizing that these principles could affect you or your family, your best friend, whatever. Because this is allowed to go on. And then what if you're next? And a precedent has already been set. And to me, there was never any reason. Another thing that gets my goat, so to speak, is when they made so many motions to have the Franks motion.
Hmm.
And it was just like denied without any reason, without any fanfare. Just no.
Blanket, repetitively.
Yeah, just no, no, we're not going to hear you. I just know. And I'm like, how can that be allowed when the Franks motion clearly shows that there was deceit, like you said, from the very beginning? And these people gave false affidavits and all this, and then the whole Odinist, whatever. But I'm like, how is, I don't understand the judicial system where a judge can just say no without hearing evidence.
I mean,
It,
let me ask you this. So you work, would you say what type of facility you work in? Is that some
yes,
oh
uh, county jail.
count okay, so you're in a county jail for quite
Yeah,
a while, right? You've been there a while.
yeah. Well, I just left like a week ago, but
Oh,
yeah,
congrats. Okay, so my
yeah.
question,
Uh huh.
would you want anyone to be in there who doesn't belong there? Who was put in under like malignant circumstances like this? Or
No.
do you think that there's a potential for them to be abused, especially before they even see a jury? Like if they're being, for some odd reason, they're being held there as a pretrial detainee?
Oh yeah. No doubt. Even I mean, even within the first few hours, first few minutes sometimes, depending on if people know what you are in there for. And I mean, come on, this case is huge. And all of a sudden you have a new inmate and he's in the jail and they're saying that he is the one that, committed this crime against Abby and Libby, that's something that is not tolerated well in
Right.
jail. And so, I mean, you're saying, days, weeks, months before a grand jury, like I'm saying hours, the abuse could have started,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yep.
know, and that's even from the other inmates, who don't know, who just see it on the TV. They've got TVs, they can see it. Oh, so and so was arrested. Oh,
Mhm.
he was sent to our jail. Well, like, look, they have all these connections. Like,
And
you're not.
sorry about that. Sorry.
No, no, no. Go
So
ahead.
you're in a county jail, so you're not
Hmm.
even like in a max security or in a big ass prison or where like all the kid murderers and chomos and hardened You're just
Well,
where like
yes. No,
you're
we
in the
we did have those.
intermediate. Yeah, they have bad guys, but
Yeah,
I
and
would imagine that some place like Westville is
oh yeah,
harder people, maybe more risky. I mean, honestly, Silky, I must be honest. Like, I don't like saying this because I never like saying things that I'm a real strong believer in the power of words and words. So I don't even like saying it, but like I really did believe that he would be dead by now. I thought like they're going to
yeah,
kill him before they allow him to go to trial. And I'm actually astonished that he's still with us. But
yeah. Me too. And I'll
I
tell
hate
you.
saying those things because I'm not wishing for it to happen. It's just true that.
Oh, I know. I expected it too. I did a lot of praying for him. At least to make it to trial, to let's see what's the truth. Um, he is. Yeah, I think that was the plan, though, Prof. I think that was the plan in their little twisted minds. Okay, we're going to blame this on Alan. We're going to send him off to Westville. People are going to believe because I guess they think we're as stupid as, yeah, whatever. And it's gonna go away. Richard Allen, is going to have an incident in prison, and everybody believes is going to believe he's the perpetrator anyway. Nobody's going to care, and he's not going to be missed. That is what I think the plan was, but
Mhm.
it certainly went way off the rails, you know.
Yeah, and
And
I since then I think recently the plan has been we were going to force him to plea. We're going to like put him in
right,
a situation where if he's going to keep living and we don't want all that attention or accountability for his death, well, maybe we've changed gears and now we're going to just put him in a situation where we force him to plea. And I think that has failed also. So now I think now they're all scared shitless. Honestly, I've been saying that behind the scenes to a few friends that I think they're shaking in their boots right now because they're in a place they don't want to be. Like he hasn't pled, he hasn't been murdered, he's going to trial, it's go time. They don't have a case, but they know all the discovery is about to be blown up on this case from the defense. And like I said, yeah, I do want justice more than anything for Libby and Abby. But the more I've learned, I also want justice for Stephanie Thompson and Blaine Nelson and McCurdy and Anna Downham and the Flora girls. And I want justice for everyone in that goddamn state right now that's been a
yeah,
part of what appears to be this underworld.
yeah,
And so that's why I'm sitting here with you tonight because for me, like I don't care about the stupid threats and all the stupidity and the harassment, all the immature like high school shit that's gone on. Hey, you've already done it all. Like you've already done it all. It's not going to shake me at this point. Like I really do feel bad. I went there. I got a lot of flack for it too. But when I was standing over those Flora girls in the what is it called? I'm trying to Crown Heights or Crown Hill Cemetery. When I was standing there and looking down where the
hmm
girls were, there's something about that hits you more than more than anything. You can't get it on YouTube. Like the reality hit me that those little girls are under that earth, and that really hit me in the gut, and a rage boiled up. I felt so sad and but also peaceful that they were there at rest under the earth. But then it made this lump in my stomach, and I thought, somebody put those girls under that fucking earth. And you know what? That right there, that's more real than anything. And the fact that there are people invested in hiding it or covering it up, to the fact that why is the county, like, anyone on earth, make me understand why justify sealing those 911 calls for 60 years at the cost of $60,000. You justify that to me when you've got four little girls who had no chance whatsoever.
Right. I know that is, and like the long list, and I think about the Florida girls as well. You know, it's that's why, and I think that's why Prof is. It wasn't just Abby and Libby, but a lot of this started with the people in that area that from the beginning said things aren't right. The cops are corrupt. This and this and this, and I think it was those kind of comments that made people like us start looking into what they're saying. And okay, let's look, let's see. I want to know the truth. And if they just have a personal vendetta against the police, you dismiss it. But when it all starts adding up, and yeah, like you said earlier, the body count. Stephanie Thompson really, I don't know. I mean, aside from all of the children, Stephanie Thompson bothers me the most because, that was just, ugh. You don't even want to get me started on, and there were some others
For
in
me,
that
Greg
area.
Ferenczi too. Stephanie Thompson, Greg Ferenczi, my top two. Because
Yes.
I mean, it's just absolutely clear. Like if someone wanted to murk Greg Ferenczi over personal issues, like they allege, they would
Right.
have found him at home or anywhere else where he's unguarded, where he might not have his weapon on him. Well, they didn't give a shit. That was a message being sent. They went to the FBI office and lured him out there and didn't give a shit if they were shot back at or if he had backup. They were going to send a message that we're going to come kill you at work, Mr. FBI. And to me, that's who we're dealing with. Like you said about the discipline, they were going after him to send a very clear message to the FBI and to all of the high ups in law enforcement.
I was just looking in the chat, and sorry, look, Prof, I don't know what is wrong. Like I said, I got rid of all my mods because of a weird message I got, and I'm sorry. I'll add y'all all back later. But I didn't realize through half of that they were talking about you, and I do apologize because I have a zero tolerance for anybody who is on the panel with me. You can like them or not, but I have zero tolerance. So
Oh,
let
yeah,
me
just
apologize.
arguing and gaslighting. It's fine.
But I finally had to get on another device to do that, to ban somebody or to time them out. So sorry to all of y'all chat. I know I didn't realize what he was talking about because y'all know I don't tolerate that. But I do have there was a comment. I was trying to find the original by and I couldn't find it. But I think, oh wait, there we go. Here's the last one. The original one was by let's see. Um, the defense is going to blindside Nick. What do you think about that? I've got fingers crossed. I've got fingers
Uh,
crossed on that one.
I got no comment on that one.
Okay. I hope so.
I
Um,
would say this. I would expect, if I were Nick McClellan, I would expect to shit your pants because you know what reality is, and so does defense at this point. So, you know,
good. Good. Uh that gives me a lot of hope. It really does. I mean, and let's just say, for the sake of argument, because I can't say 100%, Let's say, for the sake of argument, that Richard Allen is 100% innocent, had nothing to do with this. They just happened to realize, hey, there was a guy up there. We could blame it on him because he happened to be there that day, and we're gonna make the PCA say he was wearing what he was wearing, and like we got to get Liggett elected, so he's gotta pull a rabbit out of his hat, and so here's our patsy. Uh, which is what I've always kind of felt actually did happen. So, but can you imagine, on top of these brutal murders and all of the cover up and all of the people who have mysteriously passed away, you have a guy whose family is torn up forever, whose life will never be the same.
Hmm.
I mean, completely ruined. I'm not saying that he can't get back to some kind of normalcy, but you're never gonna be the same person you were before this happened. So, can you imagine, you're just adding so much more pain to this whole thing, that I certainly hope, if there are bombshells and stuff in there, I hope every single person gets called on the carpet, prosecuted, whatever needs to happen in this case, because I'm just that mad about it.
Yeah, I say God help them. God help them because you see, this enterprise is, I believe, is so big, and even if Richard Allen is, I mean, involved or not, still enough crimes have been committed that God help them. But I would say if he's truly innocent, I mean, God help them to the nth degree because, well, first of all, he's going to be extremely wealthy and he's going to
Yeah,
have to move out of the country and find himself in some other place on earth completely anonymous, and him and his entire family change their identities. But you cannot turn back the hands of time. You cannot put back what was taken away. And like that man, if he's truly innocent, he will be permanently affected by the abuse he's endured,
mhm,
and to the point where they've damaged his soul in eternity. Like you can
right.
never fix that. The closest thing you could hope is get back to a sense of it by having safety and peace and no concerns with money. And and if he's truly innocent, that would be the best that could be hoped for. That he sues the balls off of the state of Indiana,
Yes.
the FBI, and Carroll County, and every individual in their capacity, and then him and his entire family end up somewhere else and just get to enjoy the sunlight at sunrise every morning,
Yeah.
and give each other hugs and kisses at bedtime.
Yeah.
Because I mean, dude, like it's absolutely impossible for him ever to be the same that he was before this.
Yeah. I same, agree, 100%, Prof. And I mean, back to, you were asking about the county jail, because of the nature of the other counties, our jail is the biggest, and we have a lot of pretrial uh for in there for horrendous unalivings, like hideous cases, and they may stay in there for a year or two before their trial comes up, and then they have to wait to go to prison even after they're sentenced. So even though, and by far, we are not like a prison. For one thing, our jail was run very well. I mean, it has its issues, of course, as any place, but even at best, we tried to put people, to make sure they were safe first. Okay, it's always safety first, and anytime we get a high profile criminal, they always go in ISO to start with, to figure out
Hmm.
where can they go. Is there anywhere else to safe? And they will have a roommate, at least one. But just knowing how people change, and I've seen um people change in our jail over time. There are some people that have claimed their innocence. I didn't get involved. literally did not care if they were innocent or guilty, just that they were safe and taken care of. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't my business. Um, but just knowing the environment that somebody has to live in, even in what I consider a good facility. Like, I would not, you could not pay me enough money to work in a prison in Alabama because we are the number one for inmate deaths. It is horrendous. Our prison system is the worst in the nation. But I did not work for the prison system. But even in what I feel like is as safe as you're going to get, jail, I mean, it's not safe. No jail is safe, don't get me wrong. But the conditions that people have to live in, like, there's, if you're wrongly accused and then on top of what Richard Allen has suffered, there's no amount of money in the world that's going to make up for that. None.
Money is not even like there's things more important than money, and
Yeah.
I think the trauma, like you know what traumatization is. Like there's
Yeah.
just no fixing that sometimes.
Mm-mm.
Like it
No.
makes your brain form different neural pathways and shit. So like you're literally physically not the same, you know.
Right.
But see, I'm glad that we kind of eased into this direction because for me, you're like the expert or you're an expert on jails because you know it, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like it's good to have someone who's an expert to kind of knock around ideas that they could actually know about, you know, and I just think to how, look, murders do occur in jails, okay, because people get
Oh,
beat
yeah.
to death or shanked to death,
Mm-hmm.
and rapes happen, and snitching happens, and but also informants happen. It's just like a microcosm of society, except it's in a very uncomfortable place, and I'd
Yeah.
never want to be there, but
Mm-mm.
I bet you you're loved because you have like a bubbly personality, and I bet you like the guys just like you being around because it's like certain amount of optimism or whatever.
Yeah. Most of the time. I had my moments because they, they're criminals and they like
Uh-huh.
to lie and they like to manipulate. But most of the time, I did try to make it as pleasant as possible. Uh, but regardless, even at best, it was horrendous. Horrendous situation for them, for sure. I want to tell you, it certainly made me think about not committing any crimes. Like, I don't want to be here.
Yeah,
Uh,
not even accidentally, and that's what I'm
yeah,
saying about Richard Allen. It's like, look, I don't know if he's guilty or innocent of any activity, but I mean that we are supposed to have this presumption of innocence and wait till it's proven. And as I'm sitting out here as a nobody, when I'm looking at what's been presented as the evidence of his guilt so far, I see zero, like literally zero. When I look at what I know because of our own work on the case with open source information and talking to locals, I see like Jesus, there's a whole lot of people that certainly seem to have a lot more evidence than he does. And there seems to be a whole lot of evidence of malfeasance on the part of law enforcement. So, with that whole bag from open source intelligence, you vice versa, you compare that to what the state has produced about Allen. It's mind boggling because I don't see how anyone could sit here and really push that he's absolutely guilty because there's evidence. The only reason I would say to push that he's guilty is that law enforcement has alleged that he's guilty. So he's being accused of a double murder. That's all I see on the part of guilt. So I don't know. Is it accused? That's the way I like to bounce back at these people, is to say, well, if you believe that he's guilty until proven innocent, that because he's accused means he's automatically guilty, then that must be where you are as a human being. Because I don't know,
yeah,
as far as my understanding, like the person must be proven guilty by facts and evidence that
right,
exist.
right. And I think that's, even the PCA in the beginning, which was never a good one. I- I- I've said this before. If you want to see a wonderful, magnificent piece of art of a PCA, go pull the one for Rex Hewerman, the Long Island SK. That PCA is perfect. Perfect. The end of that PCA, you're like, there is no defense for this man. This is he's 100% going down. I don't, there's no defense. But Alan was so vague. And then when you find out that even that vague piece of crap that they put out as a PCA, what they had to lie to do that, I'm like, oh, I
full of
was furious.
lies, omissions, and errors, and
Mm-hmm.
leaps in logic is the craziest thing, because like with the vehicle descriptions,
Yeah.
there's all these different vehicle descriptions, but you suddenly meld them all into one, except the one you omit is the 1965 Comet. But then, and then you take that and you say, okay, Jesus. And you think how Doug Carter years ago said, we have no information on a vehicle, years after the crime. 2018, I think, like, so a year after the crime, no information on a vehicle at all whatsoever. Okay, but suddenly you have all these vehicles, but then you twist and manipulate, and
Yeah,
it's infuriating.
it is. And I'm really excited. I don't know how much I can cover because of my work schedule and because of it not being televised. I'm going to try to keep up with this and do as many lives or videos as I can, but man, I am so excited and I hate that I'm not going to be in that courtroom because I
I
would.
wish you were. I really wish you were.
Me too. If I could have, taken a month, was it going to be 6 weeks? I think if I had been able to be there, I would have been there every day. I want to. This is the one case that I think above any other case I've ever dealt with, this is the one that really has just gotten down into my soul. Now that I have several that are very close to me, but this one, because of all of the craziness and all of the outright lies and gaslighting and all that kind of stuff, it's like, and then it's been personal, Prof, because we've both been through it. When you start out with a YouTube channel trying to, um, just bring awareness, try to sleuth it out, try to bring up, you come into this with very pure ideas. Okay, I just want to, stir this up and let's look and let's think. And then you get caught up, as I know you have and I have, with personal relationships, people who are your friend and then they're not your friend, and you realize, oh my god, I've been sleeping with the enemy. um and it's hard because for me, I'm just not the kind of person that can cut somebody off. It has to be real extreme, and so it's like I felt a loss of some of these
Hmm.
creators and some of the friends that I could no longer side with. It's like, yeah, we're not friends anymore for sure, but I still felt that loss, and I think it's just the whole thing is you're trying to do good, and it it's like it takes a toll on you personally, on your soul, don't you think?
Yeah, it's disappointing, but I'm one of those persons who can cut someone off very cleanly, so it doesn't bother me that way. But what's been really astonishing to me, I really do believe that there's an effort behind it. It's like I think that there are people around here who, when you're a new person, so my conspiracy theory is that when you're a new person, you start a channel, the very first thing they do is they surround you. They form a
Mhm.
circle around you, and you're promoted, you're loved, you're respected, you're validated, and everything's fine as long as you're within the parameters of accepted speech. As
Right.
soon as you go outside of those parameters, and you get chastised, and if you don't submit, uh then all hell breaks loose. And I've been through that. You probably have too.
Mhm.
And so
Yep.
for me, it's just it's case in point. It's like, well, Jesus, look at the okay, look at what's going on in the courtroom. Every single thing that was important that the defense brought up, outright denied, and all objections sustained.
Yeah.
Ever anything innocuous or unimportant is and just standard protocol or whatever that must be done, paperwork and any of that sort of shit that goes down in the courtroom. Then she gives the token yes. Same with cameras. She allowed the cameras in so that she could use them as an intimidation tactic and compel
Right.
the attorneys to step down.
Mhm.
Now that that's over with, no cameras, but then the troll farm or whoever you want to call them, they come in behind. And for everything that ever happens, they've always got a standard narrative to go with. So it's like they sit there and they come up with talking points like a PR campaign.
Mhm.
So you say, well, judge allowed the cameras, but then to bully the attorneys to step down, but then denies cameras and that's because she doesn't want transparency. Well, they come behind and they come up with this whole narrative of why she would have denied the cameras and why it's okay. But if the tables were turned and if they wanted the cameras because they wanted the thing on film, but they don't want but the defense was decide that if the defendant didn't want this thing to be filmed for any reason because it would be bad for his future, for instance, they would have these opposite talking points that they would be advocating for the cameras in the courtroom. And when you go through these PCA and criticizing the PCA or anything that happens on the case, any sort of dynamics, for every single point, they always have a counterpoint. At sometimes it's senseless because it's something that we should all be able to agree on, and that's what
Mhm.
boggles the mind. It's like, are there no points that we could ever agree on?
Right.
Like say geofencing should be allowed. What does it matter? Like if those people, those three phones that were there, if they had no criminal involvement, why does it matter that those phones are revealed?
Exactly.
Or cameras in the courtroom. Don't you want to be able to sit at home and watch this shit and not have to worry about getting the word out at the end of the day from all these different people are going to have different takes? Like,
Yeah.
there's just, I don't understand it. I really
I,
don't. It's mind-boggling that this exists, and I've said many times, if I knew this was what was going to be when I stepped onto YouTube, I would have never ever done in a million years, because I would never want to relive the past 2 years.
yeah.
But I'm not going. But now that hey, that it's what's done is done.
Yeah, and we're
I'm not
here
going
now.
back.
We're here. It's trial time. We're here. I mean, yeah, I started my channel as simply storytelling, vintage crimes. That's all that I had on my mind
Mm.
when I made one video about Richard Allen when he was arrested and it just blew up and then I had all this stuff and people and man, I couldn't ignore all of the people. And so, down the rabbit hole I went. But yeah, it's like you're right. It's like if the defense says this is blue, and you can see it's blue, but the prosecution is going to say no, it's red. It's red. It's red. It's red until people start saying, "Yeah, it's red." I'm like, just like Libby's clothes. Okay, whatever. Y'all, in your lunacy, I guess you just want to believe whatever, comes down the garbage hatch, but okay, you
Yeah,
can do
and
that.
even if it's matters not related to the trial or the case at all, it's just in social matters or in rumor, speculation, and doubt, in any matter whatsoever, it happens. And to me, that's the big indicator. It's like, well, this works much more like a PR campaign troll farm than it works as like normal social dynamics or
Yeah.
normal politics, you know. So I don't know. I've said so much about it on my channel that I don't even want to talk about it anymore in the
I
public sphere. But it's very, I think, as a phenomenon to experience and then be able to talk about. I mean, people like you and I, we're going to have an immense value to the public after this is over, just in terms of this sort of campaign speaking on it and how it was and how they kind of work, because I don't think this is done very often. That there's a lot of information on it. Like, there's very clear strategies and patterns that have been observed. And I think, like just like I was saying, how there's all of this information that hasn't hit the filings yet
Mhm.
about the truth about the case. It's the same with the social dynamics or whatever. There's a whole lot of truth to it that hasn't been told yet, because
Mhm.
we don't want to talk about it, and it's uncomfortable, and it's a lot of noise and distraction. What I want to talk about right now is like elements of the case, like the PCA and the allegations and the filings and the witness testimony and the timeline. I want to talk about things that are really, there's not enough hours in the day. So when I am talking, I want to be talking about those points, but there will come a time when all of this is behind us and we'll be able to kind of reflect and talk back upon of this aspect of it. And I think that that's going to be real interesting too, because I really do feel like people are going to jail. Like, I think this is a
Yeah,
long road. There's more people involved in the crime, in the cover up, that have been
absolutely.
involved in harassment. I think the things that are going to follow with the Delphi murders, people don't realize yet what the future holds.
Yeah. And I think also when you're making predictions, and because we know who a lot of these players are behind the scenes. um, I think if there are some bombshells and it hits too close to home, all the rats are going to jump ship and
Hmm.
they're going to be swimming on their own, and they're going to be pointing the finger at somebody else trying to get the heat off of them. And I think all the rats are going to bubble to the surface. We're going to be like, oh, okay. Yeah. Um,
I think
and
exactly. And I'm already starting to see it. Rats jumping ship. And then there's, what's the one they call when they in a bucket, when they're trying to climb to get out of the bucket, they're trying to pull each other down, trying to get out. And then they go to eating each other alive, throwing each other under
yeah,
the bus. I think we got some there's
yeah,
drama coming. But it's
yeah,
it's I mean, it's really silky. It's been, I mean, like, I'm like you, I pray every night and every day for justice for the girls, and that truth come to the surface no matter what it means, because here's what I know. Truth coming to surface is not going to negatively affect me whatsoever. So, I have
yeah,
no reason not to want the truth to come, whatever that truth is. But I know that there's
right.
probably a whole bunch of people who don't want that. And so,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. But I mean, it's going to be interesting. I'm glad that we did this live, which I mean, I know when we talk, on the phone or by text or whatever, we're always usually on the same page or very, very close to the same page. And, I've kind of been out of the loop, but I feel like this is important. I think when it's over, if not before, but definitely when it's over, we need to have a follow up um, of what happened and who's doing what now, and the things that came out, because we'll see. We'll see if our predictions are going to come true.
Well, so this coming week, I mean, I think it's exciting. We got today's Sunday.
Hmm.
Friday is opening statements. Friday.
Is it
Uh,
Friday? I
Friday
thought
is
it was.
opening statements.
I thought it was started tomorrow.
No,
Really?
jury selection starts tomorrow,
Oh,
so
okay.
that's a whole thing that doesn't affect us whatsoever. But wow, I think Friday opening statements. I think there's going to be a lot of excitement ramping up to Friday. So you're going to see a lot of the channels are going to start running, 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 running. And then once Friday happens, I mean, it's going to be a month of insanity. You know that,
Yeah.
because people
Yeah.
are going to be coming out of court telling about what they think has happened, whatever.
Hmm.
And we're going to be trying to handle it and figure out how to present it to the viewers. So I'm not looking forward to it at all, but I know it's going to be insane. But I mean, I
Yeah.
really am expecting, I promise you guys in the listening audience, I'm expecting that you're going to be very pleased with bombs that will be dropping, and I think that that's all we've ever wanted is the truth to rise to the surface for the Delphi murders, and
Absolutely. Yeah.
hopefully
I
that's
don't
what.
care who's hired at Chaps, you know. Justice for Abby and Libby. Only thing I've ever wanted.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it was just so odd because I never thought it would come, and then I'm laying in bed, years into caring about it and praying about it. So I'm laying in bed, I turn the TV on, flipping, bridge guy, killer of Richard Allen, killer of Abby and Libby has been arrested. And remember, this is fresh, so you don't know anything. All you know is for years you've been waiting for this moment, and you see, and you're, oh my God, bridge guy, jump out of the bed like Jesus Christ, make coffee, start calling, start texting, go to look who's covering it already. Who is this guy? And I just found it odd. It's just like kept waiting, and nothing but rumors came. And I can tell you, all those rumors arise out of one person. It's the most strange thing in the world.
Hmm.
Rumors kept coming. I found a cat hair, this and that hair,
Mhm.
that, and they dug in the backyard, this, and he stole something from the neighbors, that, and no motorcycle covered this, and a drop of blood in the Weber garage, this, and all of these rumors to imply his guilt, all coming from one person.
Really?
Every
Wow.
single rumor doesn't check out. It never checks out, never checks out, never checks out, never checks out. And then finally, oh well, okay, they got a bullet. Oh, really? Unfired bullet. What are the how do forensics on that work? Oh, they don't
Right.
work. It's not even a science. Okay. So
Yeah.
that doesn't matter. So okay, what do I have still? Nothing? Oh, he placed himself there. Oh, really? Let me see. Where's the recording? Is there a recording? Where's a body cam from that statement so we can ensure that that statement's correct? Oh, no body cam? Okay. So we have to take the word of somebody that he said that he was there from this time to this time. Doesn't smell right. Doesn't seem like I can take somebody's word that the only thing you got on this guy is that he placed himself there, and you all you got is the word of the officer.
Yeah.
Ah, if that's all the evidence you got, that's not a conviction. Like, think
Right.
about reasonable doubt. Like, that's instant reasonable doubt because at least one juror is going to say, I don't know if, I want to see proof that he was there at that time other than an officer's word. So I don't know, Silky. It's been a journey, but like I said,
Yeah.
I really don't know if he's involved or not in the crime, and I have nothing to lose or gain if he is or is not. All I want is a truth, and so I anxiously await. But my gut tells me that we're already correct. That everyone, there's it's like Occam's razor here. Occam's razor is that the original word on the street was all correct. They were cooking meth out there. It's a bunch of meth heads, a bunch of criminals out there. That was the spot.
Mhm.
The girls got murked and left there, and now we got this guy Richard Allen, who we don't know anything about, but the trial will hopefully reveal all. And
Yeah.
then, like you say, if there are others who will be brought to justice as a result of it, well, that would be the greatest dream that everyone responsible
Yeah.
for not only murders but the cover up. Everyone involved.
Yeah.
So be it. God help you all.
Yeah. I'm not even, you know what, Prof, I'm not even saying God help him. Like, you on your own. God ain't got nothing to do with this.
Yeah, well, you'll have to live with
Good
what's
luck.
coming. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I do. And I say that a lot. God help him. But I don't mean it like, no. I don't mean it at all.
Well,
Um,
Silky, it's. I mean, for real, seriously, you know, this is what I admonished my viewers the last stream. I said, look, that there are people in the state of Indiana who absolutely know what happened to Abby and Libby.
mhm.
I am certain of it.
Yes.
So I don't know. For me, it's shameful. It's like, like, forget Richard Allen. Other than Richard Allen, if you take him completely out of the picture, pretend he doesn't even exist, there are people in the state of Indiana who absolutely know what happened. So why? Why are they hiding
Mhm.
it?
Yeah,
And to me, that's where I just can't let go. Is that it's shameful. It's shameful.
it is. It is. And I mean, I feel like the only good thing that can happen out of this is for the corruption to be revealed and for there to be changes, a house cleaning in Indiana, you know? That's I feel like if again, because y'all people, I have a lot of friends in Indiana, and a lot of you lovely people that are in my chat and have been, eh, part of my group forever. Like, you live in Indiana, and I care. I
Mhm.
care that this same thing doesn't happen to you. It's got
Yeah,
to stop. It's just got to stop. And if this is what I mean, I hate that. And like I didn't. I wish it never happened. But if it had to happen, at least let this good come out of it. You know, clean it up. Clean up the justice system and all
that's
the
a good way to
corruption.
put it. At least let this be the good that comes. At
Yeah.
least. Yeah, I mean, how was I gonna say it? People so what I've been seeing people saying is it's going to set a terrible precedent, blah blah blah. Well, precedent is a legal thing. You're like, well, yeah, it's going to be a bad precedent for future court cases. uh I guess that's an aspect, but the way I look at it, a little more soberly, I think, is like, it's not so much setting a bad precedent as it's giving permission for other sheriffs to do this, for other cops to do
Exactly.
this, for other prosecutors to do this, other medical examiners. It's like you're giving permission for everyone in Indiana and the entire Midwest to continue to do this kind of shit ad infinitum. And to
Yeah.
me, that's worse than a precedent. A precedent is something that can be cited in a future
Yeah.
legal case,
True.
whatever on that. Like, this is opening the door to saying, "Hey, we accept this. It's okay. You have permission to continue to do this. Lie on some more PCAs. Throw some people in the fucking prison for a couple years. Forcibly medicate them. Coerce some
Hmm.
confessions. Set a bunch of people up. Gang stalk the entire community of any future crime. That's like all the things that we've just discussed. Like, is that something you want to give permission to for the next 20 or 40 years? I mean,
Right. Right. It's got
so
to stop somewhere.
it should be the putting the foot down right now. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and I hope it is. Um, it's you're right though. It is kind of exciting to think about the things, the bombshells, whatever that could come out, and hopefully do come out. And um, this has certainly been the most unusual case that I've covered. I've covered other cases, a lot of them, just briefly or for a few weeks. And there are some interesting ones, but nothing that goes down the rabbit hole like this one. Um, Idaho might look, I don't even do Idaho anymore, but Idaho has a lot of those same earmarks too. It could go down the rabbit hole, but I don't think not nearly as long as Delphi or as many tentacles, and even in that case.
Mhm.
But
Wouldn't it be
anyway,
great if wouldn't it be great if this case opens the door to going reinvestigate the Stephanie Thompson
yes.
and the McCurdy and Downham and everyone else, and even maybe uh, what's her name, Nicole Nicole
Uh, is it Bowen?
Bowen,
Yeah.
Nicole. What if they went and they reopened all these investigations on all of these things, and even Flora? Like, wouldn't it be just amazing in God's work if the results
Mhm.
of Abby, poor Abby and Libby losing their lives, is like all of this got cleaned up? Like,
Yeah.
amazing. It would be
Yeah.
truly, truly honoring their memory, which
Yeah.
is, yeah,
Absolutely.
please let
100%.
it be that.
Yeah. And somebody says about the corruption that goes up. Look, it goes all the way to the top, the very top. I've said that before. Researching the people around some of these players, it goes as far up as it can go, and I am well aware of that. Um, but I won't. I won't get off track right now. I am gonna have to go though because I've got to get up early in the morning. Um, but I'm thank you so much, Prof, for being on here and um, taking. I mean, it doesn't seem like we've been on this long. I'm looking at it. I'm like, dear God, we've been on a long time, but it's been very interesting, and we always have good conversations.
Great talk. I love talking. Yeah, we should do it again soon.
Yes, absolutely. I don't know. My when I start officially in my capacity at my new job, I'm gonna be on second shift from 3 to 11. Right now, I'm training on days, and I have no idea when I'm. I mean, I'm working days tomorrow. I could be on nights, which is really messing up my time. But I will have weekends though. Saturdays will be open.
Mhm.
So there you go.
Awesome. Look
But
at chat. Thank you, chat, for. I just want to say,
thank you.
just thank you to the chat for being here. I know it's not my show, it's Silky's, but I always just love thanking the chat for being amazing and awesome and
Yes.
contributing. So thank you so much for being here tonight, chat. I love you all. You're awesome people.
Yes, and um again, I am so sorry that I was dealing with one in the chat that I don't know why. I can usually mod from the platform, but I can't. It wouldn't let me and it kept giving me weird messages. Finally, I mean, I went onto my YouTube channel and that's why I removed everybody because it kept saying I could not remove a mod. And I'm like, this isn't a mod for me. And I thought, well, is somebody using a different name? So I deleted everybody. Sorry, mods. Um, and I still couldn't do it. But I had no idea that I was dealing with the one and I wasn't really paying that much attention to the other one. Let me again apologize. I do not, will I ever tolerate disrespect to a guest. Um, if you don't like somebody, then go somewhere
It
else, you
doesn't
know?
bother me. I'm used to it.
Oh, I know you
But
are. I
thank
know
you.
you. Oh, thank
Yeah.
you. But yeah, go ahead and I mean, you have permission to use, which you always do anyway. Thank you so much, Tammy Martin. That's so
And
sweet.
Kayla.
Yeah.
All right.
Um,
Hey, Andre. I love a bunch of my favorites in here tonight.
but yeah, play it live or chop it up, do whatever. I think I've got everything of mine set to Creative Commons anyway, so I don't care.
Awesome. I'll put it on the channel for all my viewers to be able to go back and watch on the replay. So thank you,
Yeah.
everyone. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Prof. I hate that I have to do this, but I do have to go to sleep. I appreciate you all so much. Hope you have a great night. And I know Prof's going to keep you up to date on Delphi, and I'm going to try. All right. I'll see y'all later.